And welcome everyone to Sharing with Shellshock. I am your host, ShellshockPrime, and as you can see, I know that they had a conversation going on, but I'm definitely right now. I'm about to get ready to get into the voice call, but we are here. We're ready. We're about to start. Sorry, we're just starting right now. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but it's time.
And we're in.
Yes. Anyway, it's good to have everybody coming in. We actually got a hype train in the chat going on. Thanks to everybody that's been supporting.
We're all hyped to be here with you.
Yeah. Yep. I love all of you so far.
So far,
it's not so
later
far,
it'll
period.
be different, but for now it's nice.
Yep.
I'll fix that. You're gonna hate us by the end.
Remember, everyone. Winning is temporary. Looking cool is forever.
Yep.
True.
Anyway, so this is the new season of Sharing with Shellshock. This is episode 1 of season 3, episode 34 overall. Tonight we're going to talk about the best of Nintendo Switch. That's the topic, and season 1 I had a Sonic 2 backdrop, which I use Casino Night. Season 2 I used Sonic Adventure 2. This time, Super Nintendo is the theme, and I'm using the SimCity backdrop.
Nice.
That is what that is.
Yeah,
nice.
SimCity Super Nintendo, which I'm going to use for the first half. I'll be using something different for the second half once we do the fall seasons. But for now, considering the fact that we're getting to spring, we now have season 3, and we got a really big show tonight. The best Nintendo Switch, and joining me are 3 returning guests and 1 new guest. So we're going to start off with ShadJV. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm ShadJV. I'm a variety streamer, part of the Digital Bonfire with Shell. Like I said, variety streamer. I do a lot of Nintendo content. I do some other Steam content now and then. I do a lot of visual novels, a lot of randomizers, a lot of sometimes I do a blind run here or there, sometimes I do some other challenge runs. And currently I'm doing Apollo Justice on Tuesdays, and I'm going to be starting an Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask combo randomizer on Thursday.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
That one's a fun time.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Caitlin, welcome back.
Hello. Thank you. It's good to be back. I'm Caitlin. I don't stream much, if at all, anymore, but I do post funnies on Twitter, and that's the important part.
Yes. Yep, and it's always good to have you. And the same thing goes for you, Mantle. Welcome back.
Thank you. Awesome to be back. Hi, everyone. I am Mantle. I'm a marine biologist. I'm a gamer. I'm a cosplayer, and I, same as pretty much everyone here, am a variety caster. Mostly Nintendo, a little bit of PlayStation here and there. The joke is that I'm a Zelda streamer. I don't know why anyone would say that, but it's one of those things where it's like whether I'm playing a Zelda game or not, it almost always comes up in conversation, like as much as marine biology does. Yeah, I've got the Sharkade, so marine biology and games. I'll actually go ahead and mention right now 2 previews of what's coming up on stream. That one, a couple of you heard before. One, brand new. I've not announced anywhere online yet. I'm going to be diving into my original Nintendo 64 file for Paper Mario to finally finish that. And hype in preparation for Endless Ocean Luminous, going to be finally finishing my file of Endless Ocean Blue World.
Nice.
So, yeah, because I loved the original Endless Ocean so much and completed the heck out of that. But Blue World, it was a timing thing. Never got to finish it. So I want to finish that before 2 months are up with the new Endless Ocean Luminous. Because if y'all heard some explosions when that was announced during the partner showcase, that was me.
Yep. And for the first time, we got Rick. Welcome, Rick.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, so I'm Rick. I run a channel called The D-Pad. I've been doing it with a bunch of my friends for mumble-teen years at this point. We're actually, next month, like 5 weeks from now, we're having our 13th anniversary marathon stream. We do one of those to celebrate each year since, like, I don't know, we turned like 8 or 9 or something. we're doing a bunch of like streams and things that we kind of left unfinished, or we realized like, oh, we didn't do that very well the first time, and we give that another shot.
Yep.
Yeah, we do all sorts of stuff. Our biggest kind of niche kind of claim to fame thing we do is franchise plays. We've been doing we started out doing a little legendary let's play. We're playing all of the core Zelda games, then we moved on to Mega Man, and we've been doing Sonic, Kirby, Resident Evil, Kingdom Hearts, all sorts of stuff, and some of those are still ongoing after a stupid amount of time. We'll be playing Sonic games until we're 60 at this rate.
Yes.
Maybe our biggest video is we did a brief history of Michael Jackson's Sonic the Hedgehog 3 back in 2016.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think 16, and it like blew up out of nowhere in the middle of the summer right before Sonic Mania came out. So that was a pretty wild ride. And I have to say also, Mantle, is that the cloth Twilight Princess map on your behind your left shoulder?
Well, I have the cloth proper canon map,
Ooh.
as well as the cloth Skyward Sword map, the cloth Wind Waker map, and then
Oh
the
my
cloth
God.
Backwards map. So yes.
Nice.
Holy cow.
love
The
it.
one that's behind your left shoulder, I used to have the same exact one above when I at my last apartment. I had that directly above my computer for a bunch
Oh,
of
that's
streams
awesome.
and things. So
Yeah,
hell
I've got cloth where I can. My favorite right here, the parchment from the collector's Breath of the Wild, and I've also got New Hyrule up there. So
sweet.
Yep.
Awesome.
I love
you.
that. I love
I
that.
much appreciate it. I appreciate that.
Yes. So now that I decided to make this day the day that we actually did this podcast specifically because it's the Switch's anniversary. I did this all on purpose, and it's just funny how now it's 7 years old as of today.
Holy cow.
And I definitely have some stories that I want to talk about. But before I get to my own stories, let's go in order. We're gonna start with Shad. What is your personal history with the Nintendo Switch?
For those that don't know, I've been a Nintendo fan since I was 5 and I got a Super Nintendo. So about 3 decades.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was hyped for the Switch before. Like every Nintendo console for me, it was a day one pre-order. In fact, it was at the point where pre-orders were kind of sketchy because of scalpers. It was hard to get. I ended up when I finally got a pre-order, because I had to spend like hours trying to get one. I was a little worried about limited stock, and so I ended up even placing a second pre-order at a different retailer just in case. And I ended up getting both, and so I found a mutual friend who wanted one and wasn't able to get one, and they just offset me the cost, and because I wasn't gonna scalp it, but I was like, if I cancel it, odds are a scalper will get it. This way I can make sure somebody who can get it for retail value. But yeah, I got it day one with the Breath of the Wild and Bomberman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was immediately kind of blown away by the hybrid kind of thing, as I realized at one point I was like, oh, I probably should get going to bed, but I'm having a lot of fun in Zelda. This sucks. And I was like, wait, I can just pop it out of the dock and just take it with me and play it a little more in bed. And yeah, so I just love the hybrid feature that they introduced with the Switch that's now kind of becoming popular with other stuff, and have definitely used it to its full capabilities in that regard. And yeah, I have a pretty extensive Switch library at this point, both physically and digitally.
Yep.
And it's kind of it's my primary gaming console. I do have a Steam Deck now, and that does get a lot of use. But I mean, I have just so much stuff to do on Switch, and while it's not necessarily perfect, it has its flaws. It is probably my favorite Nintendo console at this point,
Yep.
due to the features and the size of its library. So.
Yeah, that's very cool, Shad.
And it's worth saying also, I do have an OLED. I picked that up. My original Switch had gotten a lot of use and a lot of wear, and part of the venting was a little warped.
Yep.
And so when the OLED was announced, I pre-ordered one and I got an OLED. So which I really like the screen difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the OLED, Shad. Now,
Thanks.
no problem. Now, what about you, Caitlin?
So I've always been like a kind of a variety gamer. I started with Genesis, went to N64, then to PS1, then to Dreamcast, then to PS2, etc. So I was kind of all over the place growing up. But with the Wii U, that's definitely when I was kind of falling off for Nintendo gaming. Like I definitely played a lot of the Wii U stuff, and I had a lot of the big games there. But when the Switch was announced, I got in on that day zero hype where I think it was GameStop had like a $200 trade-in credit for a Wii U towards the Switch, and I was like, okay, no second thoughts, bye. Like, so I immediately went in on that, and I want to say it was I got Breath of the Wild and Shovel Knight, and then like I spent any of the money I would have spent on the Switch on like making sure I had a huge built-in SD card and Pro Controller and all that. And then I've just kind of stuck with that one Switch until I want to say they had the better battery life model.
Yeah.
And then I bought that one. And my roommate had his Switch stolen, so I gave him my old one. And he still uses that to this day.
That was nice. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
I mean, it worked out. It was good timing, right? But man,
That's who she is.
Yeah.
But man, the Switch has been like unironically one of gaming's best consoles of all time, and not just Nintendo's, but just in general for like the variety of stuff I've been able to play on it anywhere at any time, and it's so nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's just so convenient to be able to take the games with you no matter where you go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. What about you, Mantle?
Well, like many of us here, a lifelong gamer. Hilariously enough, though, even though I've always been a Nintendo kid, Nintendo was not the first console I ever played. The first console I ever played, which is how my dad realized, okay, yeah, I need to give Mantle a Nintendo Entertainment System for their 5th birthday, was playing his Atari 2600. But I've had every single Nintendo home generation ever since the NES and still have all 7 of them here and hooked up to my TV and ready to go, also in great condition. But yeah, and then the first 2 were for birthday presents, and then the next we'll get N64 and GameCube were for Christmas. And there's actually a photo of 11-year-old me ripping open my Nintendo 64 on Christmas morning, and I'm just gonna say it. N64 kid had nothing on my reaction. I need to find this picture somewhere. I know my dad has it because this is back on a film camera, but then that and GameCube I got for Christmas as well. But once the Wii came out, it started being release day arrivals for me. So for the Nintendo Switch, I'd been following it and all of its news from when it was first revealed and hinted at as the NX, to its trailer, a little teaser that we got when they first called it the Switch and revealed the hybrid aspect of it in October 2016. I was at work when I knew they were announcing that, and I was running around opening systems, but I kind of like purposely staggered a bathroom break so I was able to watch it on my phone then. And then, of course, we remember January 2017 when they had the full-on, like, hours-long showcase being like, hey, here's our new console, here's what's coming for it. And that's when they announced it was coming out March 3rd of 2017. So in just about 2 months. And I was excited, jumped on pre-orders as soon as I could, and started playing everything, which I'll get to in a second. I actually got to play around with the Switch and test it out a month and a half before its release, because I was living in Texas at the time, and this was during the very short-lived aspect of PAX South, and they were showcasing the Switch at PAX South. So I lived a few hours away from San Antonio, and me and a couple of my friends we just said, you know what? We're all going to, okay, yeah, let's go. And we all just piled in the car, went just for Saturday. And as soon as we got in there, they knew where they wanted to, but I saw the Nintendo display right front and center. I've got pictures I can share sometime. And I realized there were 3 different lines. And I said, friends, Astronym, I'm gonna hop in here. I'll catch up with you later. So they had one line to go check up some of the games, which I'll get to in a second. Another line to get into like kind of the cafe section where they had like Mario Kart. And then one line specifically for Breath of the Wild. Zelda fan that I am, I got in the Breath of the Wild line. I was actually only in that line for just shy of an hour and a half, which really wasn't that bad. Because basically what they do is they let about 20 people come in and play on the Switches for a 20-minute demo, which was really good. So you got a nice good taste for how the game played, how the console felt. They had the Joy-Cons in just the regular grip. So that was the first one I actually got to hold, and that was amazing. I love my Pro Controller, but for some games that don't require as precise control, I flip and love the Joy-Cons, especially the Comfort Grip. But I'm in this line, and I actually got emotional. I started tearing up once I'm there and playing through Breath of the Wild. So and the demo faded out right as I was starting to crest a hill, so it kind of like faded to white in the title just perfectly. So it was amazing getting to experience that right then and there. And then I immediately hopped in the line for the next few games. The way that worked, I'm sorry this is going on for a bit, but I know that this is like the preview taste of it. What they would do for that was they only let a certain amount of people in, but you had more time in there, but you were only able to be in there for 3 games, and they'd give you a stamp on your card so they know you'd played the 3 games, and then you were good. But when you played those games, you also got a pin for them, and I still have those pins in my bag over there. First one I wanted to play was Splatoon 2, because I am a huge Splatoon fan, second favorite series of all time. Dove into that. Also tested out ARMS, and then the Street Fighter 2 collection they had. Got in the line again to play the other 3 games, which were 1-2 Switch. Well, the other 2 games, which were 1-2 Switch, Super Bomberman R, and then I played Splatoon 2 again, but this time on handheld. I didn't get in the Mario Kart line because I've already played through Mario Kart 8 a ton on the Wii U. At that point, I was happy. I was content and just continued to enjoy the con. Now, I did get to go to the midnight launch for this, and I planned this so well because, again, marine biologist, I work at an aquarium. At this aquarium, for some weird reason, instead of just our usual 7 to 3:30 shifts, every single one of us once a week, we had a closing shift. Mine was Thursday night, 1:30 to 9:30. Thursday was March 2nd, leading into Friday, March 3rd.
Yep.
The week leading up to this, I stocked up on groceries and everything else so I wouldn't have to leave the apartment. I planned out everything, basically, so I was all set. Go to work, blaze home, take a shower, make sure everything's all nice and set up, TV set, open HDMI ports. We use push just ever so slightly to the side. Amiibo stands are ready. My cats are all nice and taken care of. Go to Best Buy. Picture the line, stand in line, and it's really funny because I get there like, oh yeah, they don't have any for sale. You have to pre-order. Yeah, I've got it pre-ordered the night it was available, dude. And go in. I had stuff coming in on the mail. Pick up my Switch, go home, set it up, play Breath of the Wild for a couple hours, conked out, and then spent the next 2 days pure on gaming. Mm-hmm. So I dove in with Breath of the Wild, and I got 1-2 Switch because I know a lot of people call it a glorified tech demo, but for me it was just really fun, actually party games for that. But I was living Breath of the Wild for like a month straight, and it was the best ever. And history from there, just it's my primary console. I'm playing it constantly. I know y'all have seen me play it on Twitch, keep up with all the games on that. And yeah, since I went on so much about the release and the pre-release there, I love this console so much. It is my favorite console to date. I have a lot of amazing memories on it, the games on it alone, and just everything else, which we'll get to later in the show.
Yep. And the Switch definitely has a lot of good stuff going for it, too. All right, Rick, your turn.
Oh, boy. Where to even start? Yeah, so like basically everybody here, lifelong gamer. My folks, when I was like, oh, God, 3, 4, I think it was 4, they decided to pick up an NES for themselves. My dad had an Atari 2600 as well, so we had one of those kicking around the house. And apparently, according to my mom, I don't know how true any of this is. Too young for real memories yet, I guess. But like, I guess he picked up Mario 1 and was playing that and was like really struggling with some of the stuff in there. And I guess he just handed the controller to me. I was like, oh, okay. And I just was immediately kicking his ass in that. And he's like, okay, well, I guess this is his video game then. And so it just kind of started from there and has since been a primarily Nintendo centric kind of gaming experience. I had a Genesis. It took a while to get my hands on a Super Nintendo. A friend of mine had a Super Nintendo, and that was their rationale for not buying one in the house. Like, oh, your friend down the street has one, you can go play with him. I'm like, ah, damn it. All right. But so yeah, I've had every Nintendo console as they come out. I never got into the PS5 in this room is the first PlayStation I've ever bought. I borrowed a PS2 at one point from a friend. I lived with someone who had a PS4, but the PS5 is the first one I ever bought, and the first one that I ever felt like maybe I should buy this. And I don't want to say regretted that purchase, but the PS5 has left a lot to be desired. I use it for Persona exclusively, so not great there. I have an Xbox also. I have the Xbox Series X, which I've used for a couple games. We do Resident Evil on there because they just have them all available on there in like nice high, 4K. We did Sonic Frontiers on there, some of those, but like easily 90% of the stuff that we do is on the Switch. Like it's just got everything. We actually, so at the time we had been like really gearing up for it. We had recently finished off I think Triforce Heroes or something was like a recent like game that had come out the year before, and we were like, oh man, we're gonna have a new Switch, there's a Zelda launch game, and that was like our bread and butter. Like we had like a super flattering like little micro Zelda Informer article that some extremely charitable editor over there decided to write up when we were finishing off, like we had completed all the core Zelda games, and like they were a fan of ours, and they're like, oh, we'll put up a little thing for that. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And so like Zelda was kind of our main like original claim to fame for like, or claim to moderate awareness, I guess, on the channel. So we were like, we got to play Breath of the Wild. It looks so cool. We got to do something for it. And we're like figuring out, we should figure out like maybe later the weekend we can get some folks together. And this morphed over the course of like the month or two leading up to, we're going to get like 11 people together on launch night and just start playing it with, we only owned 5 microphones. So we had mics like in between people. Everyone's like head to head, like trying to lean in to be heard and all of that. So it was a great time. We had to re-record the beginning for mostly technical reasons, but there was a few like pacing vibe check kind of issues where they were like, let's start it fresh. Let's start that a little fresh. We were like an hour in, so it wasn't an issue of like, oh, we like really lost all that. Like, like I love blind Let's Plays for the ability to get those like really like fresh eyes look on everything. But we did play a bunch of 1-2 switch because we're like, oh, sweet, pack-in style party game. We record, like we had a camera, so we had video of it, and everyone looks, it's the best kind of party games, in my opinion, are ones where everybody can, like, in hindsight, everyone looks like a big idiot, but it's so much fun, and no one cares, because everyone's just, like, going with it. It was a great showcase of the capabilities of the Switch, of the Joy-Cons, of all the little bits and pieces. I know for the PS5, they had Astro's Playroom, which was like a similar vibe of like, okay, here's like little things that the controller can do that you might not know about. Yeah. And the Wii used to do that with like the microphone and like how to do all the motion controls. But yeah, it was such a great time. I have still the original Switch that I bought day one. I was gonna say 7 years ago, and only recently finally buckled and bought an OLED. I was kind of putting it off for a while because I was like, man, maybe I do, maybe I don't. They got to be announcing another one soon. Do I get in on this? And then I saw the Tears of the Kingdom one when that was coming out. I'm like, that looks so good. I can't not. And the design on it is so sick, and the Joy-Cons look awesome. And it really, until you get the OLED one in your hand, because if you've been playing the original Switch for the last 7 years, you kind of just sort of get used to it. And you're like, all right, this is fine. But like the OLED, it's such a world of difference on just like the brightness and the clarity and like the sound, all of that stuff. It really is like a huge step up. And I was like, oh, okay, I should have just gotten in on this like immediately then. Got it. Cool. But yeah, the Switch is I'm like right on the line of calling it my favorite console. It's so close. I've been a strong proponent for a while of like every generation of gaming has like their one like show-stopping console that like in some way helped like fundamentally change the game. Nintendo, like honestly, for me, it is. I'm stuck between the Switch and the Super NES. That one has like such a ridiculously good catalog of games. It's like so much better in terms of like was it all killer no filler?
Yeah.
Like it's not perfect. Obviously, there's a ton of garbage on there, like any console, but that one. I would say the PS2 obviously was the next major one up to like really kick ass all up and down things.
Yes.
Xbox 360 helped kind of pave the way for the new era of indie gaming that we have today.
No.
Like the console itself was fine, but Xbox Live Arcade was like, I think that the indie scene would be a very different shape if not for the Xbox Live Arcade into now what we have where the Switch seems to be the only one that really cares about indie game development anymore.
Yeah.
Like there's dev kits for like Xbox stuff, but the Xbox Live Arcade is shutting down this year. And PlayStation, they really don't seem to care at all. It's kind of confusing that they like it's such an untapped market on the high res side of things and they just don't touch it and I don't get it.
I honestly have two things to add on that real quick with the PlayStation. I'll share it later in Shellshock server, but the thing I've only started getting the PlayStations later, similar to you. It wasn't until after the fact because like they never have enough games for me to justify. I didn't get the PS2 until Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, and that's the same year the PS3 came out. But that said, Sony has announced that they're not releasing any PlayStation exclusive titles until March of 2025. Here's the thing. Again, I say this as a Nintendo
mind-blowing.
Like Sega released more first-party games for Dreamcast's first year than Sony has in PS5's entire lifespan, and I'm just Sony, you're treating it like the Vita.
Yeah, it's so many like this was anyone's generation to win on the like ultra high res gaming front, and it seems like it feels like Microsoft and Sony both just kind of went, like nobody's really trying the way they should, and Sony especially.
That's part of why it cracks me up because sorry, after you.
I was gonna say that I do think a lot of that's Microsoft I think is pushing Game Pass and both Microsoft and Sony are looking at just hybrid gaming in general, Steam Decks and all its knockoffs, and home consoles can't compete with the hybrids, and so Sony's kind of like I think half given up and half like trying to figure out what they're going to do. And Microsoft is just like, let's just stick our games on everywhere so people who play it on all these hybrids.
Yeah, there's a part of me that jokes are. Oh, sorry, after Caitlin.
Oh no, it's okay. I think it is important though to note that like each platform does offer something at the very least, right? Like, yeah, Sony doesn't. The number of exclusive titles isn't super high on PlayStation, but that's also because they're helping bring those games to PC as well, which is, you know, a huge boom for more people to get into stuff like Ratchet and Clank or God of War or, you know, Horizon Zero Dawn, a game that sold 30 million copies somehow and yet no one talks about it, you know? It's and then with Microsoft, you were saying the Xbox Live Arcade is shutting down, but indie titles are coming to Game Pass all the time, and Microsoft is working with those teams, you know, helping sort of, you know, hey, we'll cut you a check and you get to be on Game Pass, you know, from day one, which kind of makes up for quote unquote lost sales, right? But these indie teams get a huge, you know, cash incentive that they wouldn't have had otherwise, you know? So it's sort of a interesting dichotomy with that. And with the Switch, right? Like games just kind of sell, like even the sort of like quote unquote lower tier games that people don't talk about. The other day I saw a news article about some like very low key, literally never heard of it indie title. Like no one's ever talked about it, but it broke like 100,000 units. Like that's crazy. Damn. Like for an indie title with like no marketing that I ever saw, like that's kind of wild, you know? And like
there are Mega Man games that haven't crossed that. Like,
yeah,
exactly. There's literally like iconic IP that couldn't even do that before.
Well, kind of like playing off what Caitlin's saying. It's like I people are always like, oh, Sony and Microsoft are batting heads. And I'm like, I've always made the joke. It's like, well, they say Nintendo's not the kind of competitions because it's not a competition. They would destroy them. And I'm not just saying as a Nintendo fan, but just looking at it objectively. But at the same time, though, I still really agree with what the Sony president has said before is like, when Nintendo is strong, the game market is strong because basically no matter which console, first, third party, whatever you're pushing it on, you're encouraged to do better. And I've got my PS5. I don't play it much, but I don't, same as Rick, I don't regret it. But Nintendo is strong as hell, and even in a lighter year, that encourages more people to do more stuff. And even as someone whose Switch lives docked like 99% of the time, I love the options it has, both as where you can take it as well as what we've all five mentioned, everything that's on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually to bounce off of that too, as far as like when Nintendo does well, everyone does well. We kind of glossed over really quick there, but Horizon Zero Dawn, I think it's worth pointing out. So like, I don't know that I've ever heard of two games as like not like tonally, but like in terms of like gameplay and genre, and like the target audience is like almost a circle in the Venn diagram. And both Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn coming out on the same day put out insane numbers. Like and then Tears of the Kingdom comes out, and oh god, I don't think it was Horizon. I think it was the sequel. There's another game that came out again the same day as Tears of the Kingdom. That one also put out like crazy numbers too, which is wild to think about. And I find it very fascinating that like not to like shovel a bunch of undue credit necessarily towards Nintendo on it, but the Switch, the era of the Switch also very interestingly seems to be the era of the ubiquity maybe or even maybe super saturation of open world games. Like obviously Skyrim kicked the door open on that real hard and never stopped kicking the same door over and over again. But we got, Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn, and they both did crazy well. And for the last 7 years, just about every significant size studio in the industry has tried at least one open world attempt with their franchises, whether they're new or existing IPs. You've got your Sonic Frontiers. You've got like every Pokemon game of the last 6 years has gotten huger and huger as well for more open world vibes. You can make an argument that Kirby and the Forgotten Land even has a much broader feel than basically everything they've done before there.
Yep.
So it's very interesting to see how those trends kind of moved with it. And like now we're at a point where Tears of the Kingdom came out. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people also, including people who liked it, even me to an extent, are like, okay, this was cool. Let's try something different next time, please.
Because
I'm enjoying it greatly, but it's also like I can only play so many 150-hour games in my life before it becomes too much.
Yes.
I live in them, but very well said.
Yes.
That's why I stagger them.
Like, there's just, I feel like in regards to the Switch era, there's just so much in regards to games that you otherwise would have never have imagined would make a comeback. I'll make a comeback, which I'm going to get to a lot of that later on. But
I literally had a list of those too if no one brought it up. Yeah,
because
sure.
That's going to be for like the later part of this topic. But I guess do you have anything else to add before I can get to my own experience, Rick?
No, not at all. Go for it. All
right. So when I first found out about the Switch, it was the NX. Nintendo had some sort of a event where they had a partnership with DNA, the mobile company, where they were going to do mobile games. And then on that same event, in order to make sure that nobody would start speculating, saying, hey, is Nintendo going to start pulling out of the console market? They ended up saying, oh, by the way, we do have a new console in production called the NX. That's all you're getting right now, the codename NX. Because while the 3DS was doing pretty solid numbers, the Wii U, on the other hand, was not. So we were at a point where Nintendo needed to do something. And something they did. So they said no NX at E3 2015. We had to wait till 2016. Then it turned out that it wasn't going to be at E3 2016 after all. All it was for that year were Pokemon Sun and Moon and Breath of the Wild. That's all we were getting at E3. So we had to wait a few more months until October that year, when on a random night, Nintendo made an announcement saying, stay tuned. I think it was October 19th or October 20th, one of those 2 days, that Nintendo was going to reveal what the NX is going to be, which a lot of people woke up that morning just to wait for the announcement. No one knew how they were going to do it. Were they streaming it? Were they just going to put it up on YouTube? No one knew. And then all of a sudden, I think it might have been like 9 o'clock Eastern. It was up on YouTube, and it says first look at Nintendo Switch. I'm like, Nintendo Switch? Oh, let's watch it. And my mind was through the roof. Like, my mind was blown through the roof. And I was like, the moment that I was able to pre-order, I gotta get it. So fast forward to January, I was recovering from being sick. I kind of got sick over like a few days before the presentation, and I was well enough to go to Nintendo New York to watch the presentation live over there, because they tend to do screenings for directs and other events. So we got to watch it over there. And when we did, everyone got to sit down around like 11:15 to 11:20 as they were starting to set up the stream over there. And it got to the point where Nintendo ended up like starting the presentation. And I remember watching it. There was a lot of good stuff in the presentation. There was a lot of really good games that they showed off. We had Mario Odyssey. We had Breath of the Wild. We had Octopath Traveler, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Shin Megami Tensei 5, and the list goes on. And then like they had the sizzle reel that had shown off a bunch of other stuff. They had Sonic Forces, they had Sonic Mania, they had Super Bomberman Rs, Ultra Street Fighter 2, and so much more. And here's the funny thing about that particular presentation. Of all the games they shown, Steep is the only game in that presentation that actually got canceled because they were having trouble trying to have the game run on Switch, because it's a snowboarding game. And
oh yeah.
It was one of their best presentations of all time. I mean, like, I know every single one of us has been through various directs and E3s where it's just like one more hit. It's like, oh, Nintendo, please, my wallet, my heart.
Yes.
But that presentation to this day is literally one of my favorite Nintendo presentations of all time.
Yes.
I think my favorite part about that presentation, not just that, I don't know if anyone remembers the software trailer for that, where it was the sizzle reel of like different games and showing like people playing it in different locations and games flashing across the screen, right? But the music for that trailer doesn't have any source. No one knows who composed it or anything, but that is the most fire soundtrack they have ever put in a trailer, and I'm so mad we've never known where it came from.
I need to dig on that, but you reminded me of one thing. So fun thing with that also, since we're all talking about the lead up to it, is we all remember the Super Bowl, of course, happened in between this presentation and the Nintendo Switch's release. Sports are one of those things, like, I wouldn't call them a hobby, but I don't like not enjoy them. But unless if my team's in the Super Bowl, I don't care. But this was hype this year because Nintendo had never made a Super Bowl commercial before.
Yeah, they did not.
2017 was the first year they did, and they teamed up with Imagine Dragons. They released and made a new song, debuted in that trailer.
God damn.
Now, the downside of it, though, is that they had the short commercial, and the long commercial. The short commercial was okay, but the long commercial, I rock out to a Believer more than I care to admit to because of that Switch commercial, and I'm just always imagining just that punch from Arms during it. So,
well, every time I hear that song, no matter where I go, whether it's a supermarket or whether if it's played in like another video or whatever, I will forever associate it with that commercial.
Same.
Yeah, but then because I remember there were so many people when I was looking at online to see how people were reacting to like the Nintendo Switch presentation and all the games. And the response was surprisingly like an overwhelming negative response. And I was like, what? Really? like people were hating on this.
I learned what happened with. Sorry, after you were saying?
I was like, I thought this was a good lineup, but go ahead.
I think what happened with it, and I gathered this from a good friend of mine, because she likes video games, not quite as much as all of us do, but she still loves them and was excited about the Switch. I found out that part of why people were negatively reacting is most of the time they were showing the short commercial instead of the long one.
Oh.
And while we all still got hyped about it, let's face it, the short was vastly inferior.
Oh, right.
So,
but I was more talking about like the presentation from the January.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, people were angry. There were people angry about that on social media, and I was like, what? Like,
I remember people were like pretty pessimistic about ARMS. They were like, why the heck did they show this?
yeah, and I've seen people saying like people were talking about like Splatoon 2 being quote unquote a rehash. People talking about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. People were talking so much crap about like a lot of the games like that they shown off, and I'm like, really? Like, and people just like passing judgment before actually giving anything a chance either. Which once the Switch actually came out, a lot of those people shut up.
No, they absolutely did. And I'm sorry I misunderstood you there.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
And I remember that now because I'm a big proponent of like for any presentation like that or any lineup or any direct is always just like no matter what I'm excited for or not, no matter anyone's excited for or not, never rain on anyone's parade.
Exactly.
Like with every direct, and even like the previous partner presentation just came out the other week. There's some games on there I'm like, oh, that looks cool. I'm not going to play it, but it looks cool, and I'm excited because it's coming. And for that lineup, I do remember now some people were saying some things. I think I'd blocked it out because I was just like, expletive deleted every single one of you. I am hyped as hell. You can't rain on this parade. Go heck off. And for ARMS, y'all, I'm going to mention this more later. I'm a huge ARMS fan. I cosplay Ninjara for crying out loud. I've got a Ninjara mask right here for whenever I do blindfolded stuff on Twitch. But
nice.
No, ARMS is underrated as hell, and if ARMS 2 is ever announced and you hear an explosion, that's me.
My phone lock screen to this day is Mechanica.
I love that, but I agree with you, Shellshock. Just there's that, but let's face it, we've all seen this. Whether it's that presentation or anything else, people just like to complain.
Yes,
it's worth noting though that like the Wii U era was like pretty damaging for Nintendo because pre-Switch hype, there were a lot of people that were like, okay, Breath of the Wild looks tight and like I'm gonna get it and everything, but I'm gonna buy like a used Wii U to play it because I don't know how good the Switch is gonna be. Like, and that was a legitimate sentiment from people who like haven't been into Nintendo gaming, but the Switch did have like at least one game they were looking forward to, right?
Yeah.
But they were like, oh, I'll just play it on the system I know has a bunch of cool first-party Nintendo stuff already. But then, like you were saying, Shell, the Switch came out and those people shut the fuck up because the Switch was tight as hell.
I mean, the Breath of the Wild alone kind of shut everybody up.
It did.
Like the attach rate when that came out was like close to 100% for the Switch.
Yeah.
It was even more than that. When it was within the first couple weeks, it was selling at a 3-to-1 ratio of the Switch.
Yeah, like
hilariously enough, I bought 3 copies of it, so I was part of that because I got the Masters, the Collector. Yeah, well, yes, because I got the Masters, the Collectors, and the regular. So.
Yep.
But no, legit, I can find the article sometime later. I'll throw it in your server, Shellshock.
Yep.
On my Nintendo News, like literally, Breath of the Wild was selling 3-to-1 because people were getting the game regardless as to when they got the console.
Yep. But going back to like my personal history. Let's fast forward all the way to March 2nd, because for personal reasons, I was not going through like the best of times. Like I was dating my then girlfriend at the time, and what happened was we went to the launch. She showed up at the launch. I was with my buddy Silverstone Connor. I met up with MMG Mike over there, who was higher up in the Switch line than I was. There was a lot of people. It was huge. It was super crowded. And because the first person in line, he was a YouTuber that goes by Alex CND. He was basically like the first in like waiting a month to get the Switch, being the first person, the quote unquote first person in the world to get it, and he was. And what happened is, there was a lot of people there. It was insane just how like, the crowd was actually starting to warp to the corner, so that way like you would be able to see like an even longer line. The people had tents, people had like ponchos, people had like blankets and everything. People actually set up TVs to play like older Nintendo consoles like Nintendo 64 or GameCube and all that stuff. People were just buying pizza and all that. It felt like a party outside, and that like anybody could just come in and just chill, talk to people. It was a good time. There was a lot of people there. Insane stuff. There was also other YouTubers there. One well-known YouTuber who unfortunately is no longer with us was there. Was extremely excited. His name is Desmond Etika. Very great guy.
Joy-Con boys.
Joy-Con boys, indeed. Yes.
Joy-Con boys. Real quick question on the YouTuber though: was he really the first? Because are we considering Japan's time zone difference?
At the very least, in North America.
That's fair. I was like, wait a second.
Okay, at least in North America.
No, you're golden.
Yes.
Also, I hope that in some of those Nintendo like store reaction videos, I can catch you in the background because I always loved watching those reactions and would feed off that hype.
Like there have been a few of them, but then there have been some. Most of them I haven't, because usually they coincide with me doing my own reactions. But yeah,
well, yours are better.
Yes. Anyway, I don't like to toot my own horn, but yeah. No,
it's okay. I'm a saxophonist. I'll toot it for you.
Hell yeah, sax crew.
Is it self-promo if it's your own channel?
It is my own channel, so.
The channel is your horn. Toot it.
I mean, technically, it's as self-promo as it can be.
Yep.
Because it's you're promoting yourself on yourself.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so since I was not feeling too great during the presentation, like they were doing pre-orders, but I couldn't stay for that at Nintendo New York, so I pre-ordered online at Target, but it turns out that I wasn't going to get it within like a week or 2 weeks after launch, so I canceled my pre-order there and ordered from Best Buy online because they weren't doing in-store pickup anymore. And what happened was, I ended up like getting 2 games at the Nintendo launch, and the 2 games that I got were Breath of the Wild and Super Bomberman R. It was a lot of fun, and it was great. It got to the point where I like just could not wait until I got the Switch so I could play the games, and I had to wait like until like 4:30 p.m. Eastern for FedEx to show up because FedEx sucks. But I still got the Switch. The moment I got it, played it, set up my SD card, got everything ready, and just absolutely could not put Breath of the Wild down. Aside from except for whenever I needed to go to the bathroom or whenever I needed to go get something to eat. Which
I mean, you could take it with you.
Out.
I was right there with you.
Yeah, but at the same time, like,
you want to see it on the big screen
because I didn't have my case at the time. I didn't get my case until the day after. So I got it. I just could not stop. It's just the feel is always the feeling of when you get a brand new video game console and that's on your mind.
Boy.
Yeah, that's on your mind. You just want to be able to play it all the time. And I absolutely just could not get enough of playing Breath of the Wild. Like, because like I said, I was not going through the best time, but Breath of the Wild got me through it, as well as the Switch in general. And
Same.
that's my history with the Switch. Aside from the fact that my launch Switch is not the same as the Switch that I have now, because my launch Switch ended up like overheating so much back in 2019, so I traded it in for the current Switch, but I was able to system transfer everything over.
Nice.
And when I did, because the one I have right now is the 2.0, that with the better battery life. I never got the OLED, although a friend of mine got me the Joy-Cons for them. But aside from that, I'm just happy with the Switch I have right now. So now we can move on to the next thing. The discussion of our favorite moments with the Nintendo Switch, including any special moments, like whether if it's something from a convention, parties, major trips, etc. Any part of your life that you hold near and dear to you during the Switch era. Caitlin, we're gonna start with you.
So I was saving my launch day Switch story for this because this is my favorite moment, which is sort of ironic given that most people who know me know I don't really like Breath of the Wild all that much.
Yep.
I adore Tears of the Kingdom, but Breath of the Wild in the long run has not been a game I enjoy particularly. But launch day, at the time, I was only working part-time Monday through Thursdays, and it was second shift. So I got off at 11 p.m. at night. What was nice about that is I get off work at 11 p.m. March 2nd, drive to the GameStop where I pre-ordered my Switch, got there at like 11:30, ready to go, right? Picked it up, drove home, and then like at almost, I want to say 12:30 a.m., hooked up everything, booted up Breath of the Wild, had snacks and drinks ready to go ahead of time, right? And I did not stop playing that game until Sunday afternoon at like noon, where my body physically was like, hey, you're going to pass out if you don't sleep, so please do that. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe now's a good time to sleep because I just rolled credits on the game. So, so I put about maybe 60 to 70 hours into that game over the weekend. And that was probably like the most I've ever sat down and just gone ham on a game. Like even during COVID, like lockdown, when Persona 5 Royal launched, Persona being my favorite franchise of all time, even then, I didn't like just marathon the entire game in one sitting. I only did 30 hours. But in general, that's probably my favorite Switch moment because having like Twitter open on my computer while everyone was playing Breath of the Wild, finding secrets and sharing with each other, it was like pure magic, you know. It was like I sort of understood why Miiverse went away is because Twitter just sort of took over as that, us all sharing our screenshots and posting our secrets with each other, DMing each other. It was all very special, you know. And granted, my friend group isn't anywhere near the size that it is today, which I'm very thankful for. But it was nice that everyone in the gaming community was just coming together and having fun with this one game, you know. Like that doesn't happen super often anymore, and I loved that so much.
That's a very good story, Caitlin. That was actually really good because
thank you.
Because like spending all that time and then also just looking at Twitter, seeing how everyone's doing, whether people are ahead of you, people behind you, and the people ahead of you who post something as like a tip, say, oh, don't do this instead, and it's a lot more helpful, stuff like that.
It was nice not having to look up guides or anything like that, because if you looked up like the labyrinths, right? If you looked up one of those labyrinths, someone on Twitter somewhere had solved it before you. So you were able to like work together to be like, hey, I'm stuck at this, or this shrine is giving me issues. Like, does anyone know how to do this one? Or something like that. It's just, it was just so cool, you know?
Yeah. It's like it takes you, it's like, it reminds me of those times back when I was like a little kid where you had like a relative or you had some friends in school that taught you what you needed to know in order to get through certain areas of a game when you're stuck. When, especially in the days of no internet for me, because that's what I remember. But yeah, those are experiences that you can't exactly replicate. And that's a good experience, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Mantle, you're next.
Yeah. Oh, for favorite moments with the Switch, like when I was previewing this question, it was like, wow, we don't have enough time for a podcast for this. I'm trying, but it's like every single moment I'm on that console is always just a blast. And shoot, I've met all of y'all in part thanks to that console. So yeah, I already described the getting to try out the Switch a month and a half prior to its release at PAX South. So that right there is absolutely one of my favorite memories. Just being able to see and touch and play and hold the system before it's even out. Because I was always one of those kids who, like, when the Wii was about to come out, and when the GameCube was about to come out, I had like actual like replicas of like how big the controllers were, so I could like feel and get ready for it. It was hyped and everything, so that was great alone. But again, like, kind of like I alluded earlier, for me, my Switch, I'm actually still on my launch day Switch. I have a pair of OLEDs. I just haven't transferred my stuff yet. And having heard what everyone's saying about the OLED and the screen, even though mine lives docked, I'm excited for that. But I'm consistently, like, both in real life and online, I'm always like, no, the Switch is a home console. It just has the option of being portable. That's a hill I will die on. And mine, like I said, it lives like 99% docked, but I love the flexibility of it, and that alone has also helped with some of those memories. Mine only ever really travels with me. Sometimes I'll take it to bed if I'm just can't put the game down, but usually at that point I've played myself to exhaustion. But when I travel, it always comes with me. And like, I go to several conventions a year. I try to make a big international trip when I can, and my Switch always travels with me. And I literally thought of like one of my favorite memories of this while we were talking. So my best friend, I met her 13 years ago online, and we became best friends thanks to The Legend of Zelda. Another reason that series means so much to me. So we knew each other when the Wii was still out. So we've already been through 2 major console releases together. When I went, she lives in the UK. I went to go visit her in November 2017. So again, still first year of the Switch. I brought my Switch with me. And she and I also got really big into Splatoon together, and we were actually able to play Splatoon together side by side. Now, at first, she was just on her TV, well, her Switch, on her dock, on her TV, and I had mine on a stand and was playing that. She knew how much time we were spending playing it. She's like, Mantle, we have a spare TV. You want me to have my parents bring that in here? Wait, are you serious? I bought a UK dock while I was there, and actually we had the TV side by side so we could do Splatoon together, and it was literally the most magical thing, having flown across the Atlantic, playing these games with my best friend, both Splatoon as well as even some single player stuff. Like, I helped her out with some Mario Odyssey stuff, like the jump rope moon that she always had trouble with. And again, video games mean a lot to me, not just from my own memories, but from the memories I've forged with friends, the bonds that I've made or boosted from them. And that right there with her was part of that. The fact that she even like had the TV moved in so we could play Splatoon on the big screen together side by side was just, it's magical. She did not pick up Splatoon 3, not because she didn't want to, because she still loves the Inklings in that world. We've crafted our own Splatooniverse. That's where I got my name Mantle from. But she still follows it, just she knows where her free time is with her life. Fast forward again to when I went to go visit her 2 years ago for her wedding. Hadn't seen her since then. She and I were just able to swap our Switches in and out of her dock at her house. So again, just being able to take this with us for there. And again, with Splatoon, there was a Splatfest that weekend. This is when they were still very regional. Yep. So I had my Splatfest on my own while she's just playing regular matches. So that was kind of surreal. Sad we couldn't play together, but we still got it outside of that. We some salmon run together. And also with the travel aspect of it, some good memories with that happened when I went to Japan in 2018. That also coincided with the Splatfest. So once I got off the plane and had got a little bit of nap at the hotel, I hopped on, Switch is on, it's staying, and I'm playing with my Pro Controller of the Salsa and Guacamole Splatfest. Go Team Salsa. And even just walking around Akihabara the next few days, seeing all the Switch stuff, it's stuff that I have at home, and then even some peripherals and stuff that you can't get. Like, I bought myself one of the Switch keyboards. I have that you can slide between the Joy-Cons. It's amazing. Seeing this stuff and even relating to people over it. And just thanks again to the Switch, more related to Splatoon, honestly, though, one of my favorite memories from this. One of my friends who was stationed in Japan at the time, we went into a retro store, and I'm wearing a Splatoon shirt, and I run into this Japanese girl who's also wearing a Splatoon shirt, and we, in very simple Japanese, compliment each other back and forth. Now, I know most of y'all here know, but for anyone who doesn't, the two main idols up here in Splatoon 1, the Squid Sisters, Callie and Marie, in English, they say stay fresh. The Japanese is Ika Yoroshika, which is a pun on Squid, let's go. But as we all know, it sounds like they say fresh.
Mm-hmm.
As the girl was starting to leave the store, I realized, oh crap, I didn't say goodbye. I ran out and I just, I thanked her, and then I went, hello, fresh. And then she did the same thing at the top of the stairs, which honestly was funnier than if I had gone Ika Yoroshika. So just the fact that we're both geeking out about this from everything. And then I can't tell you how many times I've brought my Switch to a convention, and me and my friends were either sharing new games with each other or just sitting there and enjoying it. Whenever I cosplay Ninjara, I get people around the con who want to challenge me in arms if I have time, and just so many moments. And then for all these games that we've mentioned with these memories, which we'll get to those games in one of your next questions, some of my best video gaming memories ever. Like, I'm actually getting emotional just thinking about it, because here's the thing. I used to worry, like, oh no, I'm getting more emotional and sensitive over things. Oh no, I'm getting too sensitive. Here's the thing. No, I'm not getting too sensitive. What's happening, pardon me, is I'm getting older and having more life experiences and more memories attached to why this is special to me.
Yes.
That's why I was a sobbing mess during good chunks of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I cried at the end of Side Order, for crying out loud, because of how much Splatoon means to me.
Yep.
So, yeah. And again, I could go out. There's so many more, but there's the big ones that stick out. Getting to play it early on, bringing it with my best friend, and us playing side by side, and then just experiencing it in Japan where it's from. So just, God, I love the Switch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Rick?
Oh boy. Oh God. How do I follow that up? That was so good.
I'm glad you think so, because I was like, oh no, I'm rambling, but I'm glad you liked it.
No, it's beautiful. I'm getting emotional from you getting emotional from your own memories of all these amazing things. I love it. Oh God. Like it's honestly, and this kind of bounced off what, I think everyone's kind of gotten into a little bit, which is like Nintendo is ridiculously good at crafting these experiences that everyone wants to share together. They are so good at coming up with these systems and these games and these just worlds that everyone is like dying to get in on together and sharing those memories and sharing those experiences. It's not really a Switch thing, but like Pokemon Go is the most I think I've seen like literally everybody coalesce around a single game in my entire life.
Yep.
I used to work at a sports betting, sports fantasy daily company, which you would never expect to have like all that much, give a shit about, like specific gaming stuff, or especially Nintendo, because like the sports crowd tends to lean more in the direction of like the more high res stuff. But literally like they had organized a day of like everyone showing up, does like an hour of work, and then we're all wandering around Boston just doing Pokemon stuff for like the whole day. And like everyone would come in and was like, have you spun the thing down the street? They got Togepi down there. You got to get the Togepi while it's still, and like in the apartment that I lived in, we wandered down to the nearby park, and we saw the park with more people simultaneously than we had seen in that park in the last month combined. Like it was crazy how many people came together for that. And like it's part of this like methodology that Nintendo's gone with from the beginning. Like Miyamoto talked about how one of the big ideas behind how the original Zelda worked on the NES was like, we specifically didn't put that many hints in the game, and we left it really open-ended and really like just you go and you explore, because the idea was that, yeah, you would go and you would talk, you would go to school and you would talk to your friends, be like, I have no idea where to go next. And like, oh no, if you go to the lake, there's a flute. You use the flute and then the lake dries up. It's down there. Like, what? And like just that like collaborative kind of cooperative way of experiencing this stuff together, and just everyone sharing these secrets that they find out. And all of that comes through to today. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, it's the same stuff where it's like, no. If you go over there and you stand there and you hold a big snowball, if the shadow hits that thing, then you get a shrine down there. You never figure it out if you don't go talk to Cass and figure out that it's beautiful, and I love it. And like for me, one of the biggest, like, wildest memories of the Switch just in general. So I had been dreaming for years about going to E3, RIP. Like, I think we all kind of, like, as we were, you know, getting older, and like we're like, oh my god, this thing looks so cool out there. Before it was Nintendo Space World, and like, well, not it was, but there was Nintendo Space World, and then, you know, E3 started to become a more well-known thing, and they went through their E for everyone time weird 3-year blip that was kind of odd. I actually, back in, oh god, I think this would have been right at the start of college. I went to the Nintendo World store back when it was Nintendo World instead of, I think, Nintendo NY is like the official name for it now. But I got to go there for E3 for 2006, which was the year they were showing off like Twilight Princess in particular, which people were losing their absolute minds in there. The boss in I forget the name of the boss. I get all the Goron names mixed up, but the big one, like with the giant chains throwing around and everyone's screaming and like, yes, yeah, Darbus. They had a
Darbus
really cool
on his
thing.
own, Ferris in his Twilight form.
Oh yes. Oh my god. Also, Yeto and Yetta, maybe one of the best things to happen to Zelda.
They're good. Yes.
Oh, it broke my heart watching her like staring there, twitching. I'm like, oh god,
Well, here,
so sweet.
That dungeon.
Oh,
well, here, let me
concept.
boost your heart. I saw a picture earlier of someone cosplaying Yetta.
Oh my god. Oh, I love it.
And I cosplay Wolf Link in Zant, so that just like, yes.
Oh, excellent. I want that sweater. It looked like that as a sweater. It seems so comfy.
Oh, for real.
They did a super cool thing there, which was if you brought a DS, they had an engraver who would actually engrave a little Nintendo World thing. And I've had this in bubble wrap. I can't bring myself to use it much. I use it very rarely, but I had that in bubble wrap forever. And it was my favorite E3 like related memory until I finally had an opportunity. Me and my like main like number 2 guy on the channel, John, we had an opportunity to actually go to E3 one year, and we're like, hell yes, we can finally go. He was living in California at the time, and we had worked it out that like, yep, we can get tickets. I'm gonna go there. I'll grab a hotel because he was like in the middle of moving anyway and stuff. So we go there, and this is the first time I didn't get a chance to do like a reaction stream kind of thing to E3 stuff. And Nintendo Direct was going to be a thing there, and I'm like, damn it, I'm going to be missing it. He really wanted to go to Bulletproof Coffee on the way down there. He loves that stuff. I'm like, sure, yeah, whatever. And while we're there, I'm like, oh man, Nintendo's doing their thing right now, so I'm not going to be at E3, and I'm not going to be at a computer. I just got to watch this on my phone. And I'm watching, and they're like, oh yeah, one more thing, and it's the Everyone Is Here trailer for Smash Ultimate. And I'm like, I cannot believe I'm as far away from any real computer as I can get, and I'm trying not to like go berserk in this very nice little coffee shop, just tweet storming like crazy and all of that. And so E3, I think it was 2018, we then go like, all right, we're gonna get in line. This is day 1 of E3, and we get in line. We actually managed to get really close to the front just by chance. Like, we had met someone 30 minutes earlier and we're chatting with them, and then they were like, yeah, come here into where we are in the line. I'm like, oh my god. You walk in. First of all, we were maybe like in the first, I don't know, about like 70 people to get into E3 that year. And going in, it's like, okay, where do we go? Everyone's going this way. Just go that way. And you go, and the Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee line was literally already full for the entire day.
Yep.
Like there was someone standing there with a sign, and they just kind of kept like rewriting numbers on, and they were like, the line is full. Sorry, come back tomorrow. I'm like, okay. But there was a second line that was nearby, and we weren't really sure what it was for, but there were a lot of people in it. And as we were standing there, we find out like, oh, this is the Smash Brothers line. Everyone's getting in here, and we're gonna play Smash Brothers. Hell yes! And we're standing in line, and we're doing that, and we got to play like the demo of it. And we're like, this is awesome! Holy cow! Way more dynamic than Smash for Wii U. Everything's so much faster and heavy hitting and all that. And it's like, this feels great. We were in line for something else right next to that. And a woman walks up and was like, hey, did you guys try out Smash Brothers already? And we're like, oh yeah, no, we had a great time. So psyched to play that. Can't wait. It's like, oh, awesome. Sweet. Do you guys want to play it again? And we're like, sure. Okay. Yeah. And she brings us over to this different line, and it's going like behind stuff. And we're like, okay, this is a little bit weird, but all right. But there's a line full of people. It's like 100 people, and it wind around the thing. Come to find out, this isn't a line for playing Smash Brothers. There's a line for playing in a Smash Brothers like Flash tournament for Ultimate. And we're like, oh, damn, okay. So now we're like, okay, we have to actually be like good now. And we go and we play and we met a couple other YouTubers. There was one, I think Hidden Block were the ones that we met first doing that. And it was like, all right, 4 up and the top 2 move on to the next round. I played Little Mac. I just love Little Mac. He's terrible at recovery, but I love him.
Yeah.
And so I actually won that round, and one of the Hidden Block guys took second, so the 2 of us moved on to the next. I won the next one, and I'm like, oh my god, this is going great. And they're like, sweet, all right, you're gonna stay right here for a second. And I'm just kind of in this very short line. I'm like, okay, all right, I don't really know what's happening next here. And they pull me and this other guy up onto stage, where we're now going for like essentially every I guess there'd be every like 32 people was a little mini tournament, and me and him were the top 2 of that whole thing. And we're like, oh shit, okay, all right. So it's me and him playing a version of Smash we had only been playing for maybe 15 total minutes so far, on the stage on a 50-foot tall gigantic screen with like an announcer. It was so cool. I am not a like I like to play Smash, but I'm nowhere near good enough to be like, oh, a competitive Smash player or anything like that. He was playing his Cloud. I was still not very familiar with how Cloud worked, so I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna do my best. I took him down to 1, but he got me at the end with like a really, really nicely timed like air dodge and then the full limit break. I'm like, oh damn it. Okay, yep, you got me. He got a sick like Smash Brothers medal. I got a hat that I've got it in a box. We just moved pretty recently, but so much fun. If you actually go back, so we put out a video because we brought a camera, we were recording a bunch of stuff doing at E3, and we added a clip that fortunately Nintendo has not copyright struck or anything, because the Nintendo Treehouse would occasionally, in between segments, they would go like, oh, we're going to cut to break for a minute, and they would do a little transition, like 30 seconds of here's the showroom floor. And right near the end of it, at the very end, right before they fade back, there's a little line of people, and I look down, I'm like, no way. And I look, and it's me and John and the other 2 Hidden Block guys just walking there, because I wouldn't have been able to identify myself in a crowd if not for, I picked maybe the worst day to wear. I have a like neon pink PlayStation shirt that I mostly wear because it's comfy and very lightweight, and it was like 120 billion degrees out the first day we were there. And so here's me going up on stage for a Smash Brothers tournament in a PlayStation shirt. I'm like, oh god, of course, this is the day that I wore that. But it was like everyone was pumped up. Anytime someone went up to the stage, everybody was going nuts. We were later in line for other things, and there were people cheering for like the folks that are up there. It's so amazing how much everybody just kind of like, everybody just circles up around it, and like there's always a cool new thing coming. The Nintendo's had like some AAA like amazing thing every 6 months. The entire life cycle, there's like some big thing. There was Tears of the Kingdom, there's Mario Odyssey. I would count Sonic Mania. I think that was like a showstopper for the Switch as well. Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Don't worry.
all these amazing things, and like they really got the secret sauce this time. After the Wii U was like such a, I actually really like the Wii U, and it always bums me out because I'm like, they did not give it nobody programmed for it the way they really should have. Zombie U is like one of the few games I'm like, they figured it out. They actually knew what to do with this. And like it really, the Wii U was like such a like wet fart in terms of sales and like reception, and it broke my heart because it was like, it's such a creative, cool thing, and nobody understood how to program for it. And the Switch was like 180, night and day. Everybody figured it out all at once, and so many cool things on the console. And it was so awesome to be able to go to E3 and check that out. I'm so sad that it's over. I hope that something comes back. I know Nintendo World has kind of come back, sort of, but like it was part of another convention also, and you could only go for like a day or like part of a day, or it was kind of weird. But
yeah,
I hope E3 comes back in some way one of these days. I know the odds are low, but like it's such a cultural little piece of gaming that it's sad to see it go, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because without obviously, like I know like it was kind of going a bit downhill over the years, but without it, it's just leaves a huge void that can't be replicated, and even something like Summer Game Fest can't exactly match that.
Yeah.
Which, that's a whole different topic, though. But, Shad, what about you?
Well, I don't have any particularly cool big stories like some of you do, unfortunately. But the Switch has just been filled with lots of fun, small memories all along the way.
Yep.
And like a few of them, like obviously just getting my Switch. For those that don't know, the third, it's 8 days before my birthday. It's a little over a week to my birthday right now.
Yep.
And so for me, the Switch was practically a birthday present from Nintendo to me, and it was like really cool. I've never had gotten a piece of hardware like right around my birthday like that, and that alone made it kind of extra special for me during the lead up to be able to be like, this is what I'm getting myself for my birthday, and I just played a ton of it that week. And similarly, the OLED, it was pretty memorable. I remember at first when it was shown off, I was like, oh, they're just doing a better screen. That's it.
Yep.
But then I started to kind of notice my Switch's the vent at the bottom was a little warped, and my system was starting to get hot a lot and stuff. And I was like, it's a good time for an upgrade anyways. So I ended up pre-ordering it, and it came out. Was it the same day as Metroid Dread? Or
Yes.
yeah, I thought so. Because I Metroid Dread, that was how my first thing I booted up on the OLED, and I was just blown away by the way the colors just popped out. There's a lot of like glowing like neon colors and stuff in Metroid Dread. It looks really beautiful, and with the OLED screen, it just stood out so well. And I couldn't believe that it was just a better screen, and that's all it took to make it look that new. And then additionally, there's of course there was the memories of during the lockdown. The Switch kind of just soared in popularity, especially with Animal Crossing. And that's actually when my sister got back into video games. My sister used to play Pokemon with me all the time when she was little. And then she hit like her preteen, teen years and started like wanting to just be around the girls her age, makeup, boys, and didn't really want to touch video games again. And then shortly after the lockdown began for COVID, she was in her room all the time, not much to do, and she remembered when she had Animal Crossing on the 3DS and decided she really wanted to play the new Animal Crossing. Unfortunately, the Switch was abysmal to find at the time, and she ended up, after trying to get one for, like, I don't know, probably a couple of weeks, she got really frustrated and ended up having to cave into a scalper. But she just immediately just started voraciously playing New Horizons, and suddenly, after, like, well over a decade, probably a decade and a half, of a good decade, probably, of not really having much to connect with my sister over, I could just talk to her about Animal Crossing. We all of a sudden had a shared interest again. And in a way, I guess that is a very special memory of me for the Switch, because, I mean, my sister and I have always had a positive relationship. We're 12 years apart, so she's in her early 20s. And being a 12-year gap meant we didn't really have a lot of, like, a sibling rivalry, but it was also it was hard to find shared interest due to the age gap.
Yeah.
And New Horizons was really the start of that. And then they ended up doing, like, a few months later, maybe, there was a Splatoon 2, like, a return Splatfest. And she saw about it and got curious and ended up picking up Splatoon 2.
Yeah.
And I was surprised because she's never been into competitive games at all. She was so into it. For one, Splatoon 3 announced, and she got so excited. by the time Splatoon 3 released, she had put like somewhere between 1,300 to 1,400 hours into Splatoon 2, and this was like in less than a year.
Wow.
This was like all her free time. She got so hooked on it. And she's now since just barely passed it in Splatoon 3. And like it was another shared interest because I play Splatoon, so we were able to, especially with Splatoon 3, when Splatfest came back, I would we'd try to coordinate to be on the same team so I could play some Splatoon with her, even though we're in different cities, which has just been, it's really great to just be able to do something like that with my sister. Mm-hmm. And like, there's also been a few, I've been trying to get her into some other games. I did end up getting her Stardew Valley at one point, and it didn't click with her right away, but like 6 months later she started picking up, and now she's since put in a couple thousand hours into Stardew Valley between her Switch and she ended up getting a gaming laptop because she really wanted to do mods and stuff, and she kind of wanted to stream, though that's kind of been a back and forth.
Yep.
So yeah, all of that is really a lot of it, and just being able to have that kind of connection. And when I ended up getting my Switch OLED, she had really been wishing she could have a second island in New Horizons, because she was happy with her island, but she wanted to replay the game without losing her island. And so I ended up being like, well, I mean, I'll give him for like $100 my Switch, which is in fine condition as long as you don't play in handheld mode, which she doesn't really do. Mm-hmm. You could have my Switch. It's much cheaper than buying a used one, and she happily took that because she only uses it for a second island. And so it's just the Switch just is really, weirdly enough, and I never would have expected it, opened like a new kind of connection between me and my sister that we always, like I said, we were always kind of close, but also kind of didn't have much common ground. And thanks to the Switch and weird timing of lockdowns and stuff of the world, we ended up with a shared interest, and it's kind of cool. The Switch kind of bridges gaps.
Yeah.
And these games that honestly are games like Splatoon are kind of more hardcore games. They're still accessible to people who haven't been playing video games for decades.
Yeah. Because having connections has always been very good when it comes to video games in general, and the Switch is no exception. Because for me, I guess I could segue into my experiences, my own like memories and special moments. Because it always comes back to my local gaming group, which is Switch and Play NYC, which I help run that group with Sylvester O'Connor, MMG Mike, and a couple other people within the New York community. And we play so many different games for so many years. We've done so many different events. Like we've gone to Coney Island during Splatoon 2. And there was the aquarium we went. I happened to make the mistake thinking there were squids in the aquarium, and because there weren't, because I promised there were and there weren't, I promised that I was gonna have to eat wasabi, which I did in a later date. But there's that. Because we went to Coney Island. It was a fantastic time. We got to play some Splatoon 2, local matches, salmon run, and all that for a little bit while exploring the sights of Coney Island, eating some Nathan's hot dogs. We would also go out of our way to go to different events in general, different places. I've done the Sakura Matsuri Festival. And I brought my Switch with me. It was a lot of fun. Can
I chime in with something about the aquarium real quick?
Go ahead.
Squid are typically not really kept in an aquarium. Just most of them, their habitats don't work out as well. Usually, you'll only find octopuses or cuttlefish. But I can guarantee you there were probably squid as food items there for the animals. So you're still right.
Yeah, I was going to chime in there too, because squid are actually my favorite animal. And so that's been a huge thing that I've been yeah, I can't find them at aquariums because they don't do really well.
I'll
Yeah.
have to get you some pictures and videos from some of my night dives because I've seen a lot of reef squid on some dives before.
I'd love it. I love squid so much.
They're so
Because
good.
like I chalked it up to the point where thinking that they probably had something at one point, but then it got removed because of when Hurricane Sandy hit us. There were still some parts of Coney Island that still weren't exactly fixed just yet, and the aquarium did take a hit. But between that, I'll tell you this: I never got a chance to do a rooftop party. Though there's still time. I could probably do one this summer.
I'll fly out there for that.
Yes. I haven't. Speaking of flying, I actually haven't flown a plane in years, and that was like way before the Switch was even a thing. I'd say like around the time the 3DS was out, but before the Wii U was the last time I flown a plane. But what I did do is I've gone to multiple conventions where it's like New York Comic Con, PAX East, Long Island Retro. I've been to those conventions, and during the Switch era, people would be playing a lot of Switch games together. Like there would be dedicated groups that play, like whether it's there's two groups in PAX East in general. There's two groups that I would normally see that huddle around playing Switch games together. One of which plays Pokemon, like you have the PAX Pokemon League, and the other group are the PAX Monster Hunter League. Like you have the PAX Monster Hunter group, dedicated to playing these games together, and also there have been some people at different events bringing Switches with them. And I will say though that this goes hand in hand with the Switch because whenever I would go to PAX, I would be a part of panels based on Nintendo Feud, and we would sometimes use the Nintendo Switch for mini games. One of my favorite moments I could bring up was PAX East 2022. Shout out to a good buddy of mine, Kurt Dog, for running the Double Nintendo panels. Like, for those who don't know what they are, Double Dare is basically a Nickelodeon game show, and he does a Nintendo version of it at multiple conventions. So
you having to explain what Double Dare is made me feel really, really old.
yes. So
I used to have a Double Dare game on the NES because I loved the show so much.
yeah,
I never had the game, but this is gonna sound really silly. I would always read about the cheats for it in Game Genie. Yes, it's like, oh yeah,
That
Double
game,
Dare.
it's so the game itself, the video game is terrible.
So I've heard.
it was published by Game Tech, but you want to know who developed it? Rare.
Really?
And
No kidding.
and the composer was David Wise.
Whoa.
Well, they
wow.
can't all be hits, I guess.
Well,
They were just telling the future for when Microsoft bought them.
You know what they also made on the NES though that was pretty rad? Slalom. Also music produced by David Wise, and it's legitimately awesome music.
yes.
Shockingly good for a game entirely
I'm gonna
about
check that out.
just skiing.
Yep. So when we were doing Double Nintendo there, Kurt would use like his Wii U, or not Wii U, Switch, for the Mario Maker portion, which was the obstacle course. Because before that we played like different random games, ask questions. I would have a partner with me, and my partner is a good buddy of mine, Azran127, who is going to be a guest in next week's show.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
we both won. We both won the whole thing. We each won $60 in eShop money, and everybody that was there that participated also got like some prizes, as well as those bubble tapes, like the Hubba Bubble bubble tape.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, everyone got that because they wanted something nostalgic related. So that was like the nostalgia from like the 80s, 90s. But everyone else got all eShop cards and prizes. But that's one of my favorite moments. Another favorite moment that I could probably bring up. I don't want to bring up too many for time purposes, but I do want to bring up like 2 or 3 more. Another one that I want to bring up was whenever I do like any of the barbecues for Switch and Play NYC, we've done like multiple barbecues. 2017 we did one theme based on Sonic Mania. 2018
Hell yeah.
Sonic Mania Plus. We actually gave away the special edition of Sonic Mania with the Sonic with that Genesis, like the statue of Sonic with the Genesis. We gave that away to a winner of a tournament. 2019, unfortunately, we could not do the game portion that we wanted to do there, which was originally we were going to do Crash Team Racing Natural Field, but that did not have local multiplayer wireless, so we pivoted to Mario Maker. But it was too hot that day, so we had to cancel the Mario Maker portion and do the Mario Maker tournament we wanted to do like as a separate event at a later date. 2020 lockdown, we didn't do it. 2021, we were not confident enough. In 2022, we just didn't get the chance to do the barbecue. But 2023, we did the barbecue again, and oh my god, I'm seeing that statue. That's exact same statue.
I think you're talking about this, right?
That's the same one. Yes.
I love this thing. It's so cool.
Yes.
It's very rad.
I love it. But yeah, like 2023, we themed it around everybody 1-2 switch. And
God.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna tell you right now, that game is nowhere near as bad as people make it out to be.
Yes.
It's better than 1-2 switch. I'm gonna say that right now. It's better than 1-2 switch. But it was fun. Like the bingo game steals the show. But it was fun. Like it was actually a late September barbecue. It was like we turned it from a summer barbecue to an end of summer barbecue, making it feel like the last bastion of summer before we hit autumn. So it was a perfect way to do it. The only negative about that barbecue was there was a lot of flies. Like that was our bees.
Oh.
It was bees. So we had to use bug spray. But other than that, everything else was good. And like all the tournaments that my group Switch and Play NYC would host, mainly like for when we do our anniversary or holiday party, Halloween, and all that stuff. We did so many events to count. But just the best moments are just spending time with some of my best friends, whether if it's online or in person. Just spending time playing like Switch games together have always been like amazing moments. So collectively speaking, it's just really hard to just name one for me. So we could go to the next thing. Top 5 at most top 5 favorite Switch games. Mantle, we're gonna start with you.
So here's the thing. I know it's top 5, but that's impossible.
Yeah.
Although I do have my answer planned out, because here's the thing. I will show you what my top 5 games are, but to be fair, because otherwise they're all going to be Legend of Zelda games.
Yeah.
I basically have like my favorite series on it. So literally, if we're just going with top 5 games, it's going to be Skyward Sword HD, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, the canon one, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So if we're just going by 5 games, these would be my 5 games. But while I love The Legend of Zelda, y'all know I love Legend of Zelda, we have to make it a bit more everyone is here and just show more of what I'll just do like one game per series.
Okay.
Just to show like, even if it's not my favorite game for it, just it's like my favorite series which represent more of what the Switch is. But
Yeah.
these are what my 5 favorite games are in this order. So yeah, I already played like literally hundreds of hours of this, but on the Wii U version. This is my 5th favorite game of all time. Only bested by Wind Waker, Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, and top of all Ocarina of Time. But I love these so much, and then these 3 adventures, I love different things about each of them. Hot take, Age of Calamity is actually my favorite of these 3. Part of it's just because of some of the story stuff, regardless of all the additional characters and everything. But there's different things I like about all 3 of these better than each other. But to me, just as a Zelda fan, how much stuff we've gotten both for new games, canon as well as non-canon, for like the non-canon for like the original Hyrule Warriors, as well as the Cadence of Hyrule, as well as incredible ports and the new stuff. It's just, and that's not even without even getting into the Nintendo Switch Online. It is a gamer's paradise. So I, as a Zelda fan, the Switch has just been incredible for me. And seriously, if anyone checks like my play history on each of these, this one I actually still need to finish because it came out 2 days before I found out I was moving down here, and I had to put a hard stop. Otherwise, I wouldn't have moved for this job. Well, previous job.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for anyone who's not tested out any of these Zelda games or finished them, I can't recommend any of them enough. There is something in them for everyone. They're all amazing. But if we're going by series, while Super Smash Brothers would be an honorable mention, because to me, this is the best Smash ever. And I was a Melee kid. I've played every Smash Brothers since the release of the N64 one on that. Even before the DLC, this is just, it's so good. But for 5 series, we'll go in backwards order, 5 through the first one.
Yeah.
The fifth, I'm just going to go ahead and say ARMS. ARMS is underrated as hell. A lot of people don't realize that ARMS, honestly, it did really well. It just had the problem of it came out during the Switch's first year when it had all these monster hits and came out a month before Splatoon 2 came out. But ARMS is already in the million club, and it is phenomenal. I know that some people are like, oh, it gets repetitive. I'm sorry, what fighting game doesn't? I love fighting games. Okay, I'm just gonna say my ex said that, and I'm gonna kick your ass at this game. But no.
ARMS was the one fighting game to, like, outside of Smash Brothers, to really appeal to me because it wasn't super complex to learn a bunch of combos. Mm-hmm. It was more of a psychological game.
Exactly.
About reading them.
Yeah, and we all remember because we all were talking about Nintendo's presentation earlier, the January 2017 one. ARMS, yes, it is a fighting game, and yes, it is boxing, so it appeals to punch. Yeah, hell yeah, my friend. Yeah, Shellshock for the win. I know. I promise. Later in your server, I'll share pictures of my Ninjara cosplay.
I'll definitely check it out.
No, for sure, absolutely. This game, for anyone who didn't see it, ARMS, very honestly, while it is a fighting game and it does appeal to the boxing, I'm a huge Punch-Out fan as well. They also compare it to a bit of a shooter because of the way you're able to angle your shots. And the fact that there's so many playstyles, you don't have to use motion controls. I love motion controls on this game. I'm good with them, but I actually mostly just play with a Pro Controller. There's so much variety in it. And while, as you said, there is some psychology and there's some skill with it, it's just a fun game. And the party crashes were great. I wish I'd played more of them. And then just the fun modes in between the fights. The characters design's amazing. The story's great, and the music alone. Even if you don't play much of this game, just do yourself a favor and enjoy the music. So if that's number 5, next series we're jumping into will be Octopath Traveler. Another one where if you can ever know a mark of a good series or character is if I cosplay them. I cosplay Ninjara, I cosplay Ulbrich, the tall guy here.
Yeah.
I've actually just started up Octopath Traveler 2 finally, just because last year, as y'all know, was rough. But Octopath Traveler, it breathes fresh life into the classic RPG like formula, where both new and old fans of RPGs, there's something for you. And I mean, there's a bit of grindiness in it, especially if you do the post-game boss, but it is just such a fun, beautiful, incredible series. I'm just going to say it right now. This is my favorite Square Enix series. I like Final Fantasy. It's great. Octopath Traveler kicks its butt, though. It just does everything right for the music, the characters, the story, and it truly is intertwining. And if anyone here, I know most everyone here in the voice chat knows this, isn't familiar, though, it's not, some people make fun of the name. Well, it's not just 8 paths. It's actually a backronym because the first letter is actually the letter of every character's name. So we've got Ophelia, Cyrus, Tressa, Ulbrich, Primrose, Alphen, Therion, and Honnet.
Yep.
And they do the same thing in Octopath Traveler too. So again, I'm very early in the second one, but I already know I love it. Octopath Traveler, best Square Enix series, incredible. If you've not played it or if you've not finished it, you owe it to yourself, even if you don't do all the side quests. Third, you're going to go for my third favorite game series of all time, Xenoblade Chronicles. The fact that the Switch has 3 of the 4 Xenoblade games on it is insane. And I love everything about it. I just recently finished 3, cried my eyes out, loved every moment of it. And that's part of why I've brought it 3 is because it's for ranking 3rd place. But Xenoblade, again, incredible JRPG. Since it has the live action, the live combat, and just the real-time combat and auto-attacking, even if you're not as huge a fan of turn-based or you want to take a break from the turn-based, just being able to explore and run around this game again. Incredible characters, incredible music, epic story.
No.
And you can play all 3 mainline Xenoblades on the Switch, because they have Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as well as the Definitive Edition, which is truly definitive of the original one. And point of information, Rick was mentioning earlier about how Zombie U on the Wii U did a great job with the gamepad. Again, I will die on the mountain that the Wii U was an underrated console, but 2 other games that did incredible for the gamepad, aside from Zombie U, were, yes, exactly, Xenoblade Chronicles X and Splatoon. And Xenoblade Chronicles X, Monolith Soft wants to bring it to the Switch. It's just such a big game. So I'm hoping it comes at some point, or with a successor, excuse me.
Yeah.
But Xenoblade's fantastic. The next 2 are not going to be a surprise for what my favorite series on the Switch, Splatoon. Second favorite game series of all time. I have sunk literally thousands of hours into all 3 of them so far. And this, to me, kind of going along with what Shad was saying about even his sister getting into it, Splatoon, to me, aside from loving the gameplay and loving the characters and story and music, oh my God. This game I love so much because there's literally something for everyone in it. If you just, no matter what your interest, skill, or time levels are, there is something for you in this game. If you just want to play a couple matches here and there with friends, this game is for you. If you want to be crazy, try hard, sweaty, competitive, this game's for you. I'm in a very fortunate position where I'm actually friends with some former competitive players as well as just some damn good players. I'm an X ranker, and I am too hard on myself because I've got people who are even better than me and make me want to be even better at the game. I have to remind myself, wait a second. Based on past percentages, I'm in the top 1%. I got to stop being hard on myself and just enjoy it. So fun little thing, though. I'm not a huge fan of online multiplayer.
Yeah.
Splatoon is the online multiplayer for people who love online multiplayer. I've been playing Splatoon since day 1 on the Wii U, and I was like, I'm just gonna play the single player. I was level 10 before I set foot in Octo Valley. It pulled me in that much. But and again, Splatoon means a ton to me because I mentioned the story with my best friend earlier. She and I have crafted characters in a universe from all this. Marine biologist, so of course I love it. But I could go on and on and on and on more. But no, just Splatoon. And if you've not tried any of the Splatoons yet, 3 is definitely the one to go to. I will say 1's my favorite, but I feel 3 is the best. And they just keep adding to it. And Side Order just came out, which was just epic. But no, Splatoon it's also a very unifying game. It's like I made friends with Japanese players on the Wii U for that. So that's part of why I loved Miiverse.
Yep.
And Splatoon's just incredible. But my favorite game series of all time is, we've already gone over, super well represented on the Switch, The Legend of Zelda. The games on there, every single one of them is amazing. Skyward Sword would have to be my favorite one for it because it is my 3rd favorite game of all time. And they've truly outdone themselves with the HD version. I can't wait to get back to it. So yeah, like I said, I've covered the top 5 games and then the series there. I hope that helps, but no, it's just when I saw you mention top 5, I immediately said, oh shit, that's a problem. So that's why I was like, here, let me just show the 5 Zeldas, and then just again, as we've all mentioned, the library is incredible. It's not fair to just do Legend of Zelda games, even if those are what my favorites are.
Exactly.
So, but although honestly, Splatoon 3, I think I enjoy it a bit more in Tears of the Kingdom, but it's still just, but that's it. I love that. Those are my games. I can't wait to everyone else's.
All right, Rick, your turn.
All right. Mantle's got props, so I had to go and grab my own props for this. I'm gonna whip through a couple like notable mentions from the third party zone, because I feel like first party is a lot easier to discuss as far as like the Switch specifically. And I think this might assist in later segues into some other topics as well. But 4 that really stood out to me on the third party. First of all, is Mega Man 11. I grew up a Mega Man fan. I think all of us at some point probably fell in love with a Mega Man game. Even more than Mega Man 2, I was a big Mega Man X, just super dork. And it really, so the D-Pad started as a podcast back in April 2011. And I think our second episode, we did our first episode, it was like April 3rd. And like our second, or maybe it was our 4th episode. Oh, yes, represent. Hell yes.
Shellshock for the win.
I was so excited because like one of our earliest episodes, because we were doing every week, and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait. We're going to have such an awesome thing to talk about when it comes out. and I wake up on the morning of April, I don't know, 20th, whatever the exact date was off the top of my head, in 2011, because to discover that the Mega Man Legends 3 prototype demo was not available in the shop. And I went to go like, oh, why is that? And it's because the whole thing got totally canceled, and I was completely heartbroken. And it really bummed me out just to sit and wait and watch as Mega Man just kind of collected cobwebs for 8.5 years after Mega Man 10 came out, which Mega Man 9 and 10 were fine. I like doing it once, doing the retro style thing once was fine. Doing it twice felt a little more desperate, and I was like, oh, this might not be good if they're just gonna do this again.
Yeah.
So I did a live reaction thing because there was some Capcom. It was like it was the Mega Man like 30th anniversary event, and I was like, man, I gotta check this out. Even if it hurts, even if it's another Mega Man Rockman crossover style announcement, I gotta watch. I gotta see if they're gonna do anything for poor Mega Man. And they have the whole like timeline, and I'm like, oh god, please don't let this just be nostalgia for its own sake. Please don't make it hurt. And they have that last like, oh, they run to 2017, and then it gets really dark, everything fades away, and he warps into a room that's, or it was like 2017, and then he warped into a room that said like 2018, 2019 or something. I'm like, oh, and then it just shows up Blockman stage. I'm like, holy shit, oh my god, they're actually like, and it's not just another 8-bit style cash grab feeling thing, like it's a full real ass Mega Man game. We got to play that at E3 2018, and like that was easily John and I's favorite moment of the whole thing, was getting our hands on a brand new Mega Man game.
Yep.
Gotta put a huge shout out for Celeste. I fell in love with this game so hard. I had no idea what I was in for, and I love platforming games more than anything else. I love action-y style, like just twitchy controls, like go and do all that like dynamic stuff, and Celeste is incredible. The way that it teaches you how to do these ridiculously complex things really naturally over time is like amazing. You really do get the sense of flow at the game, and honestly the story does like this really great job of like giving you this pretty simple premise, but like there's a lot more emotional depth to it than you get from similar styles of like retro 8-bitty vibe sort of games that like all try to do like, oh, you know, a little look into the past or like a look inside. Like this one actually felt really like dense with like personality, and I really loved it. The farewell DLC like straight up broke my heart a couple times with some of the things going on there. And it's honestly, it's maybe it might be one of my favorite, if not my favorite, like non-franchise games of the last like decade.
Yeah,
it's just incredible. Sonic Mania as well. Sonic Mania, similar to Mega Man 11, it's like, oh my god, Sonic is gonna make a game that's not shit, finally, after like 6 straight years of just garbage and nothing. And they just kind of fell into this point where they're like, what if we only make games for anniversary celebrations or something? And it's like, please make more games. And I guess they finally heard about it come 2023, because they're like, oh, what if we just make all of the games all at once and just keep putting them out there, and they're all pretty good, so that's pretty awesome.
Yep.
But Sonic Mania was like a great opportunity for the classic franchise to really come back, and it is criminal that they did not bring Headcanon and that crew back for more in that exact style again, like not in the exact style but like the same vibe.
Right.
I used to be on the Sonic Retro forums back in like the early 2000s, so like I used to interact with like Stealth and Taxman and all of those people, and it was awesome to see like a community that used to be so, and not used to be like it isn't anymore, it still is so engaged with classic Sonic and trying to come up with new crazy things to do with these games, to see that idea kind of grow up into like, hey, they got so good at this that Sega straight up was like in communication with them about like, hey, what if we got together and made a Sonic game that you think everyone would go totally apeshit over? And they did, and people lost their goddamn minds, and it was an awesome experience. And I really, really wish that kept going like that. I played a little Sonic Superstars. I'm not done with it, but multiplayer is maybe one of the most hellish experiences I've ever played. It's hard to play multiplayer in Sonic Superstars. Straight up, the camera just randomly decides who it's going to follow, and it's
I
borderline
just got done
torturous.
doing that with some friends
Yeah.
like a week ago. And by got done, I mean we tried the final boss for an hour and we're just like, we're done.
Oh no! Oh god, we're like halfway through. We're gonna get back into it soon, but it's like
Good luck.
we needed like a breather afterwards. We all had like this deep anxiety of like we don't know what we're doing, and the levels just it felt like the ghost of Knuckles Chaotix decided what if we made a multiplayer new Super Mario Brothers Wii style experience of Knuckles Chaotix, and it's a mess.
Wow.
I'm gonna try it single player when we're done because I hope it's at least a little more palatable. But it's like, ugh, it's cute,
no.
but
It has some interesting stages. I'll say that. Stage
Okay,
designs are
yes.
good.
Okay.
I like those.
Both Caitlin and I have played the single player of Sonic's Superstars.
Yeah.
We don't like it.
Oh no! Even in single player. Oh no!
Well, damn, I had been considering getting it, but I think you might just be saving me a purchase now.
Yep.
Yeah, you can save
I'd
your
say-
money.
yeah,
Buy
save
Sonic
your money.
Frontiers.
Yes.
Damn.
Yeah.
I've already
yeah.
got that on my. That's one of the games, which means my PS5 doesn't completely collect dust.
Me and my friends only tried to push through the whole game because I got it as a gift for Christmas.
Good to
from
know.
Oh, nice.
parents.
Yep.
See, this is
And
another
I-
reason I love this circle of friends is we get to help each other out this way.
Yes.
Yeah,
I-
I pass. Just take pass.
I
Duly
probably
noted.
still would have convinced myself to play it anyway, just because I would be hoping maybe capturing a little of the Sonic Mania vibes again. And yeah, if we weren't doing the Supersonic, like we have the Supersonic Let's Play as our big Sonic franchise play, and without that, I don't know if I would have like tried to get a group together and done the thing. And it's like, yeah, seems like everybody's kind of universally deciding like, what happened here?
Yeah.
Oh God. I'll fly through these. Number 6, I'd probably say Pokemon Legends Arceus. Maybe the best thing to happen to Pokemon in
Yeah.
a long time. Maybe since like the X and Y days, maybe Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. It's what everybody's kind of wanted Pokemon to be for like decades. Like, let me just run around, catch Pokemon, battle them a bit if I want to, but maybe I don't have to. Maybe I can just sneak up and catch them. And I'm so psyched for Legends ZA.
Same.
I'm very excited to see what they do with that.
Yep.
In the 5 slot, I'd say Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It's maybe the one example of a franchise that didn't need to be revived by Nintendo with the Switch. Most of their like first party ones felt like they needed like the defibrillator. Kirby had just put out like Star Allies was also on the Switch, but before that they also had
Planet Robobot.
yeah, Planet Robobot on the 3DS, which was awesome. Triple Deluxe, also a really good time. Like Kirby's had shockingly few misses over the years, and it's really once they stopped trying to do spin-off titles as much that they really just kind of just banger after banger. Like honestly, Kirby's Dream Buffet is one of the recent ones that I'm like, okay, that one was a little weird. It's a cute enough short experience, but the replayability, at least for me, was like after about an hour, I was like, I think I'm good. I think I got the gist of this game. Like it might make for a good party game once in a while, but not something I could sink my teeth into for a long time.
Yeah.
This is a great,
Understandable.
awesome 3D Kirby game in the spirit of Kirby 64 seems to be its like number one like ancestor out of the franchise, and just really cool stuff top to bottom. Excellent music. The DDD Wild theme is one of my favorite jams Nintendo's put out in ages. Any iteration of Mass DDD is like just bound to be in my head forever. And like all the bosses that are in there, Morpho Knight having some interesting like non-verbal lore added just by how it interacts for 10 seconds on screen is like, ooh, okay. I'm curious.
The
what they'll play with this.
implications of these just brief moments in these Kirby games are
Yeah.
insane.
They tie together so many things. Was the Mage Sisters and Halcandra and all of that? If you slow down the like Highness's like crazy screed at the end of Star Allies, essentially it gets implied that they worship dark matter, and it's like, whoa, that's a huge callback to something they haven't touched in like 20 years. All
Yeah.
right, sweet. Number 4, Metroid Dread.
Yes.
It's only that low because I had not really played any Metroid before this came out. I specifically, when it got announced, I decided and then announced like the same day that I was going to do a stream franchise play of the Metroid series. Plowed through all of the non-Prime games. I'm saving those for Prime 4. I did play Metroid Prime 1. It's the only Metroid game I'd ever played, but I put myself through the torture of Metroid 1 on the NES. I enjoyed Metroid 2 on the Game Boy a lot more than I thought I would. Super Metroid, unmitigated classic. Metroid Fusion, well-meaning idea, implemented a little awkwardly. I wish that they took you off the leash a little faster than like literally the last moments of that game. And then Metroid Dread, the remakes are also really good, and Metroid Dread is crazy good. And it's, I think, the best seller of the whole franchise by like a huge amount too. So hopefully they stop ignoring Samus. Zelda. I have a hard time choosing between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I like the mobility in Tears of the Kingdom really, really well. Breath of the Wild, I think, might be slightly more my favorite between the two, just because it is so new of a concept for Zelda. It's like every game, it's like, oh, you start in your forest area, you're learning, you're on this little linear path, and then maybe you get to Hyrule Field and you explore a little bit, and like you kind of get corralled around. And this one's like you are literally seconds into the game, and it's like, hey, you're on an island basically the size of entire world maps from most of the other games. And about an hour or two after that, you're released into this thing that is like 40 times larger than that. And the game's like, yeah, do whatever. You're like, how? What?
Yeah.
I love Zelda a ton, but I agree with you hardcore. I mean, as with any game, there's like different things I like about each of them better than the other, but Breath of the Wild's been edging out for me. And that's not just because I'm a massive Sheikah fan, but each of them is better in their own way, but hardcore agree. And it was so new, but also such a callback to the originals. And I'm looking forward to whatever's next.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we don't just only get open world going forward, because I'd like some that aren't an open world. I'm not a huge fan of open world games. And
I tried Skyrim a long time ago and it didn't really land for me.
And like I'd like some Zelda games that aren't 100+ hour commitments, that are something that I can like just sit and play through a few times. And
we recently had we're still doing a let's play of it. We just literally on Friday put out our 200th episode of this damn game.
Oh wow.
Half-hour plus episodes the whole time. We're just gonna play it till it's done.
Yep.
And we just did the Lightning Temple in Tears of the Kingdom, and it is hands down the best dungeon on the Switch for Zelda. It's like not even an argument. Like the the Wind Temple is like close. It's pretty decent. If it's the first one you go to, it's maybe not number 2 for the whole thing. But like Lightning Temple feels like a real dungeon. It feels like a real dungeon in the Breath of the Wild engine. It's like, okay, you have no excuse for not having a Zelda experience like this. If you make a dungeon.
Some of these dungeons, though, but I feel you, and I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I mean, like original, brand new.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I agree with you hardcore. Yeah. That was my favorite dungeon of all.
Is a classic. I think everybody like that one's just so weird and no, not so much.
I was gonna say two things on that. So I was just at KatsuCon. I got an Ancient Cistern poster, a piece of art that someone had done. Nice. So I'll share that all with you later. No, and I was agreeing with you on Ancient Cistern because Galactos is my favorite boss fight in the history of video games.
It's so like finicky and piecemeal, and it's so cool to be able to like literally you're just straight up dismantling this robot, and it's so cool.
Oh, it's so good. No. I was hardcore agreeing with you. It was just like, I'm going to speak. I'm going to let you finish.
No, not at all. No, that's awesome. The only thing that would make Link's Awakening on the Switch better is if the original was maybe packed in with it too. It's so... I like this a lot. I think there's a lot of people who like don't like it because it feels like the Tinker Toy kind of vibes with it. I think it actually matches with the themes pretty well.
Agreed.
But like there are tiny little bits and pieces that feel just a little different in ways that maybe you're like, I just miss... And just thematically, especially for your first time playing the game, that playing it on a Game Boy with that little bit of ghosting blur as you're moving around because the dot matrix isn't quite keeping up with the refresh rate that they're doing, and like everything has this ethereal quality to it on the Game Boy original, not even the Game Boy Color one. And like nothing can, and this is just like me soaking in a bath of nostalgia, but like nothing replaces that experience of, especially as you're learning the mysteries of Koholint Island, and when you finally figure out at the Southern Face Shrine like what is actually going on, and you're like, oh my god, biggest twist that I had ever seen at that point in my life in a game, and I'm like, oh, this all makes so much sense, and like all of that tied in with just this weird wispy kind of like feel was just so cool on the original Game Boy. And Link's Awakening on the Switch is super close to that. I'd say it's like 90% of that.
Yeah.
The game's still mechanically almost identical. It's awesome. Everybody should play it. If you ever get a chance to play the original Game Boy one, I think that like something about it is just a little unsettlingly spooky, and it matches the vibe so well. And the number 2 one for me has got to be Smash Ultimate. I think we've all talked about it plenty. It's the best version of Smash. I was also a huge Melee fiend. I hated Brawl. I couldn't stand it. Everyone felt like a sack of potatoes, and they kept falling. And it just it wasn't quite right for me. I like the Wii U one reasonably well, but Melee still had a big place in my heart. And then Ultimate came out, and it was like, holy shit, this is everything I've wanted in Smash. This is the best one.
Yep.
I forgot to grab it, but I think my number 1, and maybe this is like the most like basic bitch answer I could possibly give, but Super Mario Odyssey is, I think, the best Mario game that's ever been made. It is so good. The flow in that game is unmatched. You can do so much with like so few. Mario's moveset is extremely simple. And like it's like Mario 64 with a little bit of sunshine with like 2 new moves, and that's and you have 1,000 or 880, whatever the number is, moons, and they all feel rewarding. They all have something going on. It's like Mario in this gigantic landscape, and at no point was I like getting bored with it. Everything was a fun new puzzle. I've been dying for them to put a sequel out, and they just I need another one at the very least. Like if they put one out on the Switch 2 as a launch title, like perfect. Yes. I would love for them to close it out. Close out the Switch with Mario Odyssey would be beautiful, but I don't know. I went on for so much longer than I meant to. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. Shad, you're next.
Okay, so again, picking 5, that like making me pick my 5 favorite Switch games probably should be a crime, Shell, and you probably should be locked up. But I'm
going to the cops right now. This is happening.
But I'm going to pick 5 of my favorites that currently in my brain are like it would take me a long time to actually sort through what are my absolute top 5 out of my favorite games on the Switch. And a lot of the ones already mentioned are ones that I would potentially make that list. But I did kind of just go through briefly and picked out games that stand out to me as of right now. And so ranking them from tentatively lowest to highest. First is actually Super Mario Maker 2, which is probably a really out of left field pick. But I got really hooked on Super Mario Maker 2 and had ended up putting in hundreds of hours just into the versus mode with like playing with randoms, just seeing whatever the heck stages come up, and then like it's just like sometimes you get absolute garbage, sometimes you get something really cool. And I like it on the creative side too. I actually at one point was working on a project where I was trying to kind of make Majora's Mask in Super Mario Maker 2 through a combination of levels inspired by parts of it and music stages. I only got a few levels in. It was a huge project that I got too ambitious with.
Yep.
But like I've seen people do some really cool stuff like that. Some like Ocarina of Time based levels, like the Deku Tree. I saw a really cool level based on it.
Yep.
And just obviously Super Mario Maker 2 is Super Mario Maker 1 with more features, but I think in general we don't have enough of those official creative tools to make these games that really, it's not like they're eating into profits. Nobody's gonna not buy a new 2D Mario because Mario Maker exists, because Nintendo has their own polish and their own gimmicks and their own things. And like, but at the same time, I think opening the community up to working with this stuff, because people are going to do it anyways with like ROM hacks and stuff. but giving an official way for people to do it both can really lead to some cool ideas and also gives little Timmy a chance to just make something that he thinks is great, even if it's not, and that's what matters in the end for the kids.
Yep.
So number 4, I actually picked Super Mario RPG. The Super Mario RPG, for a long time, I considered the original as my favorite game of all time until like my early 20s when I realized I actually like Majora's Mask more. But it's still up there as one of my favorite games of all time. And the remake of Super Mario RPG is, in my opinion, one of the best examples ever of a remake making a game how I saw it back then. Like the music alone, every time I entered a new area, I was like, wait, is the music any different? This is just what I remember the music. And I'd switch to the old music and I'd be like, oh, wow, it's very different. But like, this is just what I remember. And the graphics also managed to capture that charm. There are a few translation bits that I'm like, I don't agree with, but for the most part, it's just was one of the best walks down memory lanes, like that wasn't just straight up playing the original game with like new textures.
Yep.
And I really hope that the Thousand Year Door remake kind of takes a page out of that and has some like bonus content and cool stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm.
But number 3, what?
I was just gonna say I'll be very happy if Mario succeeds where Final Fantasy has been very frustrating on the RPG remake front. Not Final Fantasy VII, but all the like pixel remasters or whatever. Like,
I hope we finally get a new Mario RPG game after these 2 remakes.
they've been finally talking about it, right? So
yeah,
fingers crossed.
We're talking about it, and the studio behind Mario and Luigi and Mario and Luigi was trying to fill that niche. So maybe.
Yep.
yeah. I mean, ideally, I'd love a sequel to Super Mario RPG, but since that's very unlikely, I'd love just a real Paper Mario again with the battle system, the partners, the badges.
Yeah.
So, my number 3 is actually a Switch port of a Wii U game, but it was a Wii U game that was one of the handful I missed just due to timing and stuff, and that is Tokyo Mirage.
Yes.
My man.
That's
my
nice.
man.
Yeah, when I got it knowing like, well, I missed this game and I was interested in it, and I've heard and had some friends that were like, this is really good. But I was like, my mind was blown. I had not played anything in the Persona series, so nothing kind of that style of kind of fusing the kind of fantasy feel with like the slice of life kind of story before, but it honestly was I felt one of the best games I played in the past decade. And the story, the characters I got so attached to, the story was really compelling. The gameplay was really solid. The music, I still listen to some of the songs, like just casually. I can't really give many flaws for Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and I hope that is a thing that's, I don't want a direct sequel because I feel that story's tied up, but I'd like another of that style game with the Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei / Persona kind of fusion.
Yes.
If they were to make a sequel, I think they would do the Persona style sequel where it might take place in the same world, but it's completely disconnected in narrative.
And that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
Use different Fire Emblem characters and have a whole bunch of new protagonists of a different story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then my number 2 is one that was already mentioned, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. It's not often that a game essentially brings me to tears. Xenoblade Chronicles, like, if you know of what part of the game. I was playing at like 4 a.m. when I got to the emotional part, and I was like, I'm not sleeping tonight. It was Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a masterpiece of storytelling. Xenoblade is a series that in general is very close to me, and it's a series I play for almost everything but the gameplay. I don't dislike the gameplay. The gameplay is enjoyable, but the gameplay isn't a reason I'm playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is the stories, the characters, the environments, the music, everything else. And Xenoblade 3 just like I went into it, I always go into games like this weary because I'm like, these aren't the characters I grew attached to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I'll feel about trying to like love some new characters. I love those. I love the entire cast.
Yep.
And like honestly, it's I'm gonna straight up say it's the best entry in the series.
Mm-hmm.
And
Agreed.
that's a hard competition. I've loved every single game in the series, including X.
Yep.
Same.
But 3 is so good at the pacing, the emotional gut punches, tying everything together of the franchise. It's just in the DLC, while it had its flaws, really was the perfect send off. And yeah, I probably in any timeline would pick that is one of my top 5 Switch games.
Yep.
Even if I waffle on some of the others. And the final one, the number 1, is a game I played last year, and it's not Switch exclusive, but it wasn't new out last year, but I got it 2022 Christmas and was able to start it in January last year, and that is Persona 5 Royal.
Hey.
And it was my first exposure, like not first exposure to Persona.
Mm-hmm.
My old roommate actually got Persona 5 at release and didn't have a PlayStation 4 and borrowed mine, which I saw bits and pieces, and from what I saw, it was always kind of on my list of games I wanted to eventually try, but I didn't get around to it until last year, and I got so hooked that last year I played Persona 5 Royal, Persona 5 Strikers, and Persona 5 Tactica. And this year I'm already working through Persona 3 Reload, and I'm hoping to do Persona 4 Golden before the year's over. And Persona
Speaking
5...
my language. I love this. I love to hear this.
Persona 5 was one of those games, the rare games that altered how I viewed the world. It has a lot about I don't want to get into spoilers, but there's a lot on how you see yourself in the world and how you see others in the world, and there's a lot on just how do you make a difference in the world and stuff, and just without I'm trying to say it as vague as possible without getting into spoilers because the themes are really great, and it practically for a while, and kind of still is, became an obsession where I would just I constantly listen to the music and love the music. The art style really hit home for me. The characters, it was a very emotional journey that's meant a lot to me. And the Switch, this really does tie to the Switch a lot though, because the long RPGs like that, as much as I'm a huge RPG fan, a lot of the problem for console RPGs for me is always it's hard for me to get the time to stick around a TV to beat it in a reasonable time period. And so it could take just so many months to get through a long RPG, but having it the portable option meant that when I go to visit my family, I can just take it with me and still play a few hours a day while I have my days off there.
Yeah.
And the Switch, really the Switch was the catalyst for games like that and Tokyo Mirage Session. For me to really be able to fully immerse myself in them was the ability to just play it anywhere. And then come home, plug into the TV, get to see the nice 2-hour cutscenes on the television.
Yep.
And then be like, okay, well now I need to go through a dungeon. I'm gonna go relax in bed and kind of explore a bit.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I mean, obviously a few of those weren't exclusives, but I think some of the strongest parts of the Switch library is that it doesn't just have Switch games. It has remakes and ports of so many games.
Yes.
And it's the catalog of games, including NSO, but with everything else at my fingertips with the Switch is, I think, larger than any other Nintendo console has been, or console I've owned. Like outside of Steam, like I don't have this much access to just games through not just now but decades prior.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, so those are some of my favorite games. Again, hard to pick 5.
Yep. All right, Caitlin, your turn.
So to sort of bounce off what you're saying, Shad, the Switch being not just a good Nintendo console, but just it's great because it offers so much from every era of gaming. Right? Everything on my list has not been mentioned. I was going to put Tokyo Mirage Sessions, but I figured someone might throw it in there, and thank God you did, because that game is god tier.
Everybody should play that. It is a very quality game that I feel so many people slept on.
But all of my games sort of have a theme, in that none of them are made by Nintendo themselves. I'll be honest, most of Nintendo's first party stuff doesn't click with me on Switch. Odyssey didn't really do it for me. Even if it made me cry, did not do it for me, weirdly enough. But like stuff like that, right? But to start off with, it is a Mario game. Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which is my favorite Mario game of all time.
Nice.
Which is probably like I'm the only person on planet Earth that would actually say that with no irony in their voice.
I mean, I won't say it's my favorite, but it is a very great game. The first one specifically.
Yeah,
and Grant Kirkhope did great.
XCOM fiend, and she might wind up like, I don't think she's played it yet, but I think she would fall in love with that one.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Kingdom Battle is so good. I adore this game to bits. During the Persona 5 Tactica like hype cycle, one of my friends played it at PAX, and they were saying, dude, it's just Mario Rabbids with Persona characters. And I was like, God damn it, why'd you tell me that? Now I'm hyped. Now, like, I was gonna buy it, but now I'm gonna buy it and love it. And I'm mad. Like it's another game I need to sink 100 hours into. What are you telling me this for? Like but that game, like, I love it to bits. The DLC, the Donkey Kong DLC especially, is some of the best like side content Nintendo has ever had a part in to any degree. Like, it's just so well made. And I was really bummed out when Sparks of Hope turned out to just like do its own thing, and it was like a sequel in name only. It was very strange. I was not a fan of the direction they took with it, even if I like some of the improvements they made, like being able to take Mario out of your team, right? But Kingdom Battle just hit so well with its humor, its grid-based combat system. It was just so creative and different, especially for first year on Switch. That was technically like the first new Mario game we had on Switch. So, you know, it was a wild time where, like, between August of 2017 when that came out and Odyssey, there was nothing for Western players to really play, because for some reason they decided Fire Emblem Warriors needed to die by releasing a week before Odyssey did. But in the West, but in Japan they got it in September, which was weird. But to follow up the next game, the Live Alive remake.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's on my list of games to get to.
Yeah.
I have it. I just still need to play it.
Yeah.
Oh, you do. It's so good.
It's there.
it's literally just Octopath before Octopath. But like even the team that made it is the Octopath team.
Yep.
Like from
that I didn't know. I mean, I've been hyped for this even before we had it announced, but especially once then, it's like I've been wanting to play this forever. So you're ranking it that high? Thank you, my friend. I'm even more hyped.
Play that instead of Sonic Superstars.
No, this is our favorite.
Yeah. But yeah, continue.
But man, the Live Alive remake, I was like What's that meme where like Persona fan excited to play Persona 5 for the first time?
Yeah.
Like that was me with Live Alive.
Nice.
I had did you know gaming used to have a small side series called Region Locked?
Yep.
And they did
Oh,
an
yeah.
episode on Live Alive. And I remember watching it back in the day, and I was like, man, this game sounds so fucking sick. What happened? Why didn't this come out? Like, it has a bunch of the people that worked on Chrono Trigger, on Final Fantasy VI, like on all these awesome RPGs. Why didn't this come out?
2 reasons.
And what was that? And what are those? I don't remember.
The game actually did not perform well in Japan. That's number 1.
Shocker.
And 2, the Squaresoft USA thought that the graphics look a little bit primitive in comparison to Final Fantasy VI, which I personally do not agree with that.
Mm-mm.
It didn't help that RPGs were more niche in the West at the time, and so they'd look for reasons not to localize stuff like that. It'd have to be an exception to get localized.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't help either that they didn't know how to market them like at all either. Like
They
Earthbound famously had maybe the worst marketing strategy in the history of video
God.
games.
I know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
but go ahead, Caitlin.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Live Alive remake is just it's the epitome of like a perfect remake. And I know Rick, I want to say it was you were kind of down on like the pixel remasters and what those did, but like this was like exactly what I wanted. And I'm not normally a fan of HD 2D. I will be honest. I think it's like really overbloomed a lot of the time.
Agreed.
But the Live Alive remake really scaled it into a really nice looking zone where it didn't have too much. All the added voice acting was super creative. The fact that there's an entire chapter that has 0 dialogue spoken by anybody, and yet the entire game has full voice acting otherwise is like super creative, and I love that so much. But yeah, Live Alive remake was definitely up there, and it also shows because Nintendo was the one that went to Square to make it, right? They said, hey, we'll help fund it, timed exclusive and all that, right? But like it sort of shows Nintendo's mindset of let's bring back this old crap because this old crap is going to sell and it's going to do well and people are going to like it, like this is like a hidden gem from that era, So another one, sort of getting on the Sega train because I had to mention something Sega related. Valkyria Chronicles, which is probably outside of Persona my favorite Sega RPG series. If you're curious what the game is like, if you've ever seen or played Codename Steam, it's that but better. In that it's a sort of alternate history World War II, World War One, maybe? I don't know. My friend corrects me all the time. It's one of the two. But the idea is that, instead of fighting like, the Nazis or something like that, it's an empire that's hunting down like a magical species called the Valkyria and using them to win the war sort of thing. Highly recommend checking it out. It's usually like $20, like not even. It usually goes on sale all the time. But it's one of those games where like it just randomly got a Switch release because screw it, Switch things sell really well. Why not? And because it did well, we ended up getting Valkyria Chronicles 4 as well. Because when Valkyria Chronicles released on PC, it got ported to PlayStation 4. And because that was doing so well, they put the port everywhere and then also made 4. So you can get both of those on Switch. And that was always a very special game to me. Mm-hmm. Because when I first played Codename Steam, because I like supporting the smaller IPs, every review for Codename Steam was saying, oh, this is just Valkyria Chronicles, but not as good. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll just play that instead. Sorry. Like, yep. And so that started a very unhealthy trend of me buying every version of that game that I can. Um, but that also leads to my next game, Final Fantasy IX, which the Switch was the first time mainline Final Fantasy came back to Nintendo. Outside of like Dawn of Souls or something like that, right? Like home consoles.
Yeah.
It was the first time we had gotten Final Fantasy again. And now we have 1 through 12 and technically 15 on Switch.
Technically, yeah.
Basically, yeah. Which is awesome.
Well, 1 through 10, and then 12, and then because 11 is the.
Oh yeah, well,
I don't
11
know.
doesn't count. We don't count.
Yeah.
It's still alive at this point. I know that they were talking about sunsetting it.
Yes? Question mark. It's around. It's
Yeah.
around, I guess.
Yeah.
Someone's
Think of the
paying
shadow
for it.
of Realm Reborn 14 forever.
Yeah, that's the truth though.
Yep.
But yeah, Final Fantasy IX is my favorite in the entire series.
Nice.
And those rumors of that remake, oh my god, please give me give me the remake I want. Don't give me the 7 remake, please. Give me the remake I want.
Yep.
The lady of taste.
But Final Fantasy IX was like a super special game to me because even if it wasn't my first Final Fantasy, it was the one that like it felt the most character driven, which is something I really love in my RPGs. Ironic since not ironic, excuse me, but like no surprise since I'm a Persona fan. But it was a really special game that I played on a car trip back in the day on PS2. Like my family set up like a PS2 in our van. So when we had a cross-country trip, it was like, well, we have 8 hours to kill. Might as well start playing something. And Final Fantasy IX happened to be that something.
Yes.
Jeez.
And now I own, like Valkyria Chronicles, every version of that game that I can. I even own it on my fucking Android phone. How many hours do you think I put into it on Android? Less than 1, probably. Yep. But I own it because I fucking love that game and I'll support it. But like it was just so special that the Switch was finally getting mainline Final Fantasy again. And I want to say I own all the mainline games except obviously 11 and 14, but I do own all the pixel remasters. I do own 10, 10-2, 9, 12.
No.
Even if I don't even know why did I buy 12? I don't even like 12. Whatever.
Collection.
But yeah, right. Just I want the funny number. I want all of them on there.
Yeah.
But my last game, bit of a curveball here, but this is another thing I don't think we've touched on. The impossible ports that Switch has received over the years.
Yep.
Doom 2016.
Yes.
I don't know what was going on with Nintendo when they announced the Switch and they showed off Skyrim, and Bethesda and Nintendo were both like, it might not come to Switch. We're not sure. Like what? What are you smoking, guys? And then, shocking everybody, somehow Doom 2016 gets announced and released before Skyrim does on Switch. And that was how I first played Doom 2016. I owned it on PS4, but I never played it. But at the time, like I said, I was working part-time as like a security guard, and there was downtime every now and then. And in my downtime, I was like, you know what? I got, half hour to kill here or there. I'll just play Doom 2016. And kind of shockingly, all of those levels take about a half hour or so. So that was how I spent some of my, excuse me. That's how I spent some of my early Switch days, was just chipping away at Doom 2016 while at work. And that game is so good. I kind of bounced off Eternal, but I need to go back to it because I was in a bad headspace at the time. Because I was all in on Animal Crossing. Those came out the same day. So like I was, I put 150 animals, 150 hours into Animal Crossing.
Good job.
150 animals into our crossing.
Yeah, now you're getting it.
Yeah, that's an aquarium's life.
Yeah, right. That's not my job. That's Mantle's job. But Doom 2016, incredible, and I'm so glad the Switch has, games like that, like Witcher, the Tony Hawk 1+2, and to the guy who called me out on Twitter, it has Persona 5 Royal. Fuck you, dude. I was right. I told you it could work. I told you it could work.
Yes.
Caitlyn for the win.
Which was actually a funny story. So there was a guy arguing with me. He's like, "Oh, it can't work on the Switch," and I was like, "Dude, you're telling me it can run Doom 2016, but it can't run this, like, no offense to Persona 5, it can't run this like turn-based RPG? Come on now." And he's like, "Sure, if it happens, whatever, like you and like whatever, babe, you don't own, you don't know shit." Now and then it gets announced and I retweet him. I'm like, "Hey babe, let's go on a date or something."
Oh, that's delicious.
Very nice.
I mean, it should have been obvious when Strikers was running on Switch that if a real-time one, like the turn-based Royal, should run fine.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, I don't know, all these high-octane games run just fine. Why would Persona just magically have an issue? I don't know. Whatever.
The Switch has more power than any one mainline gives it credit for, and
Yeah.
I get so sick and tired of people being like, "Oh, it's so underpowered." I'm just, what library? The people who bitch about it don't understand the power.
It's the meme, right? Is that every Nintendo console is just two of the last one duct taped together.
Well,
The same shit for the last 15 years.
That's
The
why
issues
games are
with,
so
like,
amazing.
the issues with like performance issues are devs not optimizing their games.
Yeah.
What a concept!
Well,
And that's the thing, is like, it's so crazy to me. Doom 2016 runs like dog shit on Switch. Absolute dog water. It is awful. But Doom Eternal somehow looks better, runs better, plays better, like on Switch. The exact same platform with no like hardware enhancement in the time frame of those two releasing. Like, it's absolutely wild to me. What a nifty little tablet we all love.
Yep.
I purposely picked it up on Switch because I wanted the motion controls. So
And they're
Yeah.
good too.
Yeah, it's just the Switch has just way too many like games that whenever I want to play them, it's like, how is this running on Switch? I'm having a good time playing it on here, and it's like there are so many people online that are so judgmental about some stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. There's some games where performance, like I have to call it out, like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, for example. Like,
oh, good lord, yeah.
great, to me, okay, great
That's
game.
a crunch issue.
Great game in the grand scheme of things that is held back with the performance issues.
That needed 2 more years to cook.
Yes.
exactly,
even
they're all
they just
undercooked.
They just needed someone to check literally one thing in that game, and it would have fixed so much of those performance issues. I'm sure you've all heard about the ocean bug.
Yes, I heard about
in
the ocean bug.
Paldea?
Yeah,
Yeah. So anyone who's not familiar, essentially they forgot to set a render distance cap on the ocean of Paldea in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and it is literally an order of magnitude larger than the entire reachable region in the game. The entire play world is like 10% of the space, and they are constantly in real time rendering the entire ocean. It is a planet bigger than Earth, and they're rendering the whole ass ocean. If you're curious why Scarlet Violet seems to run like complete garbage all the time.
Okay, so I have not played Gen 9 at all, but that sounds like Aliens Colonial Marines of we made a mistake. Like, and it's just one small thing they needed to change that fixed everything.
Yeah.
as much as I love an endless ocean or even an infinite ocean in this case, that just like
It's
that's not the proper use of ocean.
So basically, not the time, not the place.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you, Shellshock.
But so, yeah. But you guys have all had a great top 5 lists. In Rick's case, top 10. Here's mine. Like,
Here we go.
it's obvious I'm gonna have stuff like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Metroid Dread, Mario Odyssey, Mario Wonder, Mario RPG, Live Alive. Those games are definitely up there. Splatoons 2 and 3 are up there for me. Mega Man 11 is up there for me. Sonic Mania, Sonic Frontiers. But I want to talk about a couple of games that did not get mentioned here. Okay. Monster Hunter Rise is one of the best multiplayer experiences you could possibly have on the Nintendo Switch. I've streamed that game for a year and a half with Shad, Silver, Mike, and I know that Dragon popped in. Dark Keyblade Warrior popped in as well. We had a great time. I would like to go back and finish Sunbreak at some point, but Monster Hunter Rise, and here's the thing. I was looking at the numbers to see what was the best-selling game on the Switch that was not made by Nintendo. Monster Hunter Rise is number one. That's one of the ones I wanted to shout out. And here's another one I want to shout out. So this game was announced at the Game Awards, and I had never thought that this series would come back, let alone on Switch. But they announced it, and then they announced a collection of games with that same series as part of it, along with other games from that same company. The series but I'm not going to talk about the collection. I'm going to talk about the game itself. Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. Never thought that would ever come back. That game was amazing. I had a fantastic time, and they introduced a skill tree so that you could be able to improve on yourself. Have more power-ups, have like better skills on how to get through levels. Yes, the series has been known to being extremely hard, especially the arcade games were in the Super Nintendo game and the NES and all that. Like, because they want you to beat the game twice in order to see the true ending. That's the way that they worked. But it's one of those games where it's like, yeah, that method sucked, but I still did it anyway because I wanted to see how it ended. I wanted to beat the game. I wanted that challenge. And Ghosts of Goblins Resurrection, at least they give you a lot more leeway here to be able to do things. There's no lives this time. Instead, when you die, you basically go back to the checkpoint unless like you're playing the hardest difficulty if you want that true challenge. But I had a great time with it. And that one's a lot of fun. But the next game, so I mentioned two. I'm going to mention three more. The next game that I want to bring up, because, yeah, Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal are fantastic games. But I'll say this right now. I had a blast actually playing, I've actually had a blast like playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. And the first time I've actually played through the game from start to finish, Caitlin, you were there with me, as well as Fash and 112. We did that 2 hours of it. We finished it start to finish. The whole experience was amazing, except for the fact that I got disconnected, but like the game crashed on me when I was in Coney Island, which luckily enough, the game had drop in, drop out multiplayer, so you could just come back and continue right where you left off.
Excellent.
So
yeah, that was nice.
Yes, so at least I had that. And as a Ninja Turtles fan, I could not get enough of it. I spent so much time. And then last year, they released the DLC, Dimension Shellshock, that added 2 more characters, as well as a survival mode, where you could actually play that with your friends and collect crystals so you can be able to keep going. And even if you finish the boss, you have the option to just end it right there. Or, the final boss, even if you have the option to finish it right there, or you can keep going, keep the whole thing endless until you die. So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Shredder's Revenge is absolutely amazing. Well worth having in your Switch library, even more so if you are a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. So the next thing I want to bring up that didn't get mentioned is Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, because who the hell ever thought that series was going to come back? So
I wanted to mention that.
But here's the
I'm so glad it did.
Here's the thing. Advance Wars, the last game of the series was back in 2008. Mm-hmm. And that was Advance Wars Days of Ruin. Yep. That game was not well received. It did not sell well. And the series just disappeared after that. That is until 2021 at E3. when Nintendo actually announced this game, and it was supposed to release in December of 2021, which got delayed to April 2022 because they needed more time to develop, because WayForward was developing the game. They needed more time to develop it, and then come March 2022, Nintendo announced that the game was delayed indefinitely because of the Ukraine and Russia war that was going on at the time. And even though the war was still going on back then in 2023, Nintendo still announced the game that is still happening in the February 2023 Nintendo Direct, so that it would release in April of 2023. 1 year after it was supposed to release. And I got it. I haven't finished the second one yet, but I finished the first one, which is more than enough for me to actually judge this. Absolutely well done. There's a lot of time and effort put into this. There's a lot of care. I like the art style where you see the whole map. Everything looks like you're playing with toys. Kind of like how Link's Awakening, it's like the whole toy world. I like it here too. And it looks fantastic. It's fun. So Advance Wars coming back, I'm glad. And it seemed to have done decently well. So when we get a new Advance Wars game or a new remake of the third one, that remains to be seen.
Please.
That remains to be seen. But for now, I'm just glad that we actually got that. But there's one more game that I want to bring up. One more game. And that game that I want to bring up that hasn't been mentioned is the fact that, because obviously Tokyo Mirage Sessions got mentioned, Doom got mentioned, but I want to bring up the fact that there was this arcade racing game that actually did get released on Switch. I could not stop playing it. It was an arcade racing game. It came out in the arcades in 2017. It was developed by Raw Thrills. It's called Cruisin' Blast. And Cruisin' Blast is based on the Cruisin' series, which the 3 games were on the arcades and N64. And Cruisin' Blast was absolutely phenomenal. High octane, over the top racing. They decided to go the extra mile, go even wilder. You could actually race as a school bus, a tank, and hell, even a unicorn with wings, like a Pegasus unicorn. And it just gets so wild. The only negative thing I have to say about it is that they promised that they were going to put online play, and they didn't do it. But other than that, Cruisin' Blast is phenomenal. If you see it for cheap, get it. So those are my 5 games that I wanted to mention. It's more of games that I just wanted to mention because my favorite games are just the most obvious ones. But yeah. How much has the Switch left an impact on you, Rick?
Oh God. Kind of not at all, actually, weirdly enough. No, I'm just,
I was like,
no,
If that was your real
honestly,
answer, I'd kick you from this Discord call.
Just no, not really. Next. No, it's honestly there's been a lot of man, it's interesting. I feel like the Switch is kind of in this weird spot generationally in games where it has this bisection in some ways. There's the first half, we'll say, of its life cycle, and then there's the second half of the post-COVID kind of half of the life cycle where there's all these different focuses and all these different experiences that everyone has had. And I think they changed some of their some of the way they tried to gear stuff towards people in 2020 and 2021 when people really didn't have a chance to get together to play stuff. It felt like there was a lot more emphasis in being able to play online together in what is the easiest way possible, which maybe this saving a little bit for stuff they could have done better. I really do wish that the online friend system was not a continuous nightmare from one console to the next. But I don't know. It feels like in some ways such a perfect storm of all of these ideas that they've had from previous generations. I mentioned before that it and the Super Nintendo are neck and neck for me in terms of just best console in general, out of maybe everything, but certainly out of Nintendo consoles. And they have just this huge library of new and old games. They are hanging on to these pieces of their old consoles that like any other company would like have gotten rid of. Like the motion controls from the Wii has been a constant for the last now almost 20 years at this point. I think next year is 20 for the Wii, or 2006, 2005.
2006.
Yeah, 2005 I think was Xbox and PlayStation, or no, only
It
Xbox.
was just
No,
2005. It was just
yeah,
360.
That's right,
2005 was 360 because they jumped the gun, and then
the next year was PS3 in the way.
exactly.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, motion controls kept sticking around. They've improved on it to such a degree that it, in some cases, going back to the Wii can be a little hard because it's like, oh my god, I'm just trying to rotate. Please understand.
Please understand.
Yeah, please understand. Oh man, rip to Satoru Iwata.
Yep.
And honestly, and I think we've all kind of shared at least some amount of like, man, the Wii U really was either like underappreciated, underdeveloped, under everything, and like when it first launched, it was like, this feels like everything they really wanted the Wii U to be in so many ways, like actually finished. Like the Wii U had a really tough start because so much of it, people were like, is this what is this big plastic thing? And like all these concepts are in there, and like it feels like Nintendo really trying to like bring their whole history together as much as maybe not as much as they can, but as much as like, you know, they're able to in the time that they've got with it. And like in the same way as the Wii, it really has kind of changed a lot of the landscape of gaming in general. Like the Switch is now behind the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation 2 as the third best-selling console of all time. And it honestly, it's got a pretty good shot at inching over that line and becoming number one.
Yep.
And it's so well deserved. It's got so much going for it. You know, obviously it's not perfect. It hasn't done everything right, but like I have a hard time reaching for anything besides the Switch when I want to play a video game at this point. It really is. It's got so many different things on there. Like you can find a bit of everything with like, it's so easy to just find all of these different things that you want in there. And Nintendo, for better or for worse, has their own, you know, all of their in-house IPs have had really strong showings on the Switch. So like if you're a longtime Nintendo fan, some of those like series you can get into it. And like it's something about it feels very cozy, I guess, is maybe the biggest thing. Like there's so much of what I grew up with that is represented in there, and it really does feel very warm and fuzzy being able to pick up the Switch and be like, hey, I'm gonna play some Link's Awakening. I'm gonna play, maybe not the best example because I have a very love-hate relationship with it, but Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee can be some light fun now and then. I wouldn't play a whole game of it in like rapid succession anymore, but like it's still got something to it that's like really familiar and like fun. And the Nintendo Switch Online, it's a really easy way to play those games from the good old days.
Yep.
And Nintendo even putting more focus, like we were talking, of like all of these like Live Alive and other games that like otherwise never really came to the States, getting proper full attention on the Switch.
Famicom Detective Club.
That was, yes, exactly. Detective Club was a 1 and 2, I think, right?
Two.
Yeah.
1 and 2. Yeah.
And like
I still need to snack that.
Recently another Code R.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I'm hoping that they figure out that I don't know who is running through Nintendo Studios like signaling an air horn every time someone says Mother 3 and makes them think that we don't want it on this side of the ocean or what.
I honestly, Random and I've had really good discussions about this. It's probably legal issues because of flipping music. And it's just, I'm hoping, even if they just change it, like they used to do with dub anime in the 90s. I mean, I'm a huge Sailor Moon fan. They'd always do that.
Yeah.
I hope it happens. But it just, I'm tired of people acting like it's just Nintendo's fault. It's like,
no, yeah, exactly. I think
just
that there's something else.
Thank you. I mean, they're trying, but it's the US's fault. No, you're fine. After you.
I was just gonna say it's honestly in the same way very similar to there was a decade where you kind of couldn't get your hands on Sonic 3 in a new format for a while because shortly after Michael Jackson's death, all of a sudden it was real like they had one port of Sonic 3 that was in mid development that was able to finish, and then all of a sudden there weren't ports anytime there would otherwise definitely be like Sonic 1 and 2 were on the Genesis Mini, and Sonic 3 it was there was some other major thing that Sonic 3, it was like a Genesis Classics collection or something.
Yes.
And it was also missing there, and for like 10 years it just did not show up anywhere until we got Sonic Origins and Origins Plus, where, you know, as everyone soon found out, it's like, oh, a bunch of the music has changed and it's back to the old prototype music. Gotcha. Okay, so there's some licensing stuff going on, and I think Mother 3 probably has some level of legal or licensing issue, which is wild considering it's like it was basically a second party production in the first place, but like something is just missing in there. I know people were concerned with even Earthbound for a little while for the same reason, but like that one at least has been able to, you know, maybe it's just the precedent of it being released in the States that they can use to re-release it or something.
Yeah.
I hope that they're able to figure out a way to give us, you know, most of Mother 3 someday. Like there's amazing fan translations out there. You know, people have sworn by them, you know, high and low, and it's awesome that those exist. It would be nice if Nintendo was able to give an official one to like really bring it all together.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I still have some small hope for it just because the way that we got Earthbound Beginnings way back in the day unexpectedly. It's one of those things where it's like I'm always hoping for it because I have a translated cartridge. Still need to play it, admittedly. But same as all of us. Like I'm hopeful for it, but I'm not like, come on, wrong person.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the issue does, it's sort of Nintendo. They put their hands up at this point because it's like, content wise, how do you release this game? Because you can't market it to a wide audience because there's a lot of content in that game that would raise a lot of red flags for people, right? So I think they're like, okay, well, if we keep it the same, you know, fans would appreciate it because it's the game they love. But, you know, we're going to get in a lot of hot water because there's a lot of, you know, issues with it, right? And its representation of certain people, right?
Yeah.
But if they change too much of it, then it's backlash because, oh, you censored art or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
There's
Everyone's
literally
favorite
no
Twitter crowd for sure.
Yeah, there's literally no winning
Yeah.
no matter what they do with that game. So I think they've washed their hands of it and just ignore the fan translation. It's out there. If you want to play it, go play it. Nintendo's not going to acknowledge it because it, like you were saying, Mantle, you have a cart. You can get it. It's not like super expensive. And even a couple of years ago, for like the anniversary or whatever, they updated the patch to include new bug fixes and like a slightly cleaned up translation and everything like that from this same fan translation team. And the people who worked on that translation, they work on like Kingdom Hearts and like other stuff. They're professional translators. So it's not like it's called the fan translation, but it's done by like people in the industry. So like it's a high quality version. If you want to play Mother 3, that's basically going to be your only way outside of them entirely remaking it from the ground up again.
That's the only way, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a shame, really. So Shad, we'll go with you next. Well, how did the Switch left the impact on you?
Well, Rick did say a lot of points that I did want to touch about on how it really very much did change the gaming landscape. Me personally, it changed a lot of my expectations for gaming. Just in general, the Switch basically established hybrid gaming, which we already see is within the 7 years the Switch has come around, it's been gaining more and more traction. The Steam Deck was one of the big ones, and now there's a lot of Steam Deck kind of not knockoffs, but like other brands of that type of thing.
Honestly,
yeah.
Sony's taking swing now too.
PlayStation has their thing that's not really that,
not even close.
It's almost more of a Wii U gamepad than anything from the sound of it.
Yeah, but I think
not a good one either.
I think it's kind of felt. I think for them it's kind of like a mid-generation bandage of like trying to get the PlayStation 5 to do as close as they can to that. I wouldn't be surprised if going forward, if they look into that being an actual like option, at least, if not the next hardware. It's kind of hybrid gaming in general is because just a lot of people's lifestyles, it's not always feasible to play in front of it to have to be tied to a television. And both in Japanese work culture, that's a big thing. It's hard to have the time to just sit down and game. But also in US work culture too. Like I take my Switch to work to play on breaks and my lunch break and stuff. And because I know sometimes my time's limited when I can get free time, and that's a big deal for me. I think that's a big deal for a lot of people, Steam Deck included.
Yep.
And I think in the same way that to some degree we set the standard for some level of motion control in controllers, that's not that uncommon to have some sort of gyroscope. I think that the Switch is kind of establishing that pattern, and both my expectations, but also everybody's expectations of having the ability to play games on the go. And it's something that Nintendo's kind of was always building up with. They've, since the Game Boy, their handheld division has always consistently been strong. Their home consoles have wavered in their success, but their handhelds, they've always had that, like, an iron grip on that market. The PlayStation Portable did all right. Vita lost all that. And nobody's really been a big challenge there right through the 3DS. And then when the Wii U already was kind of a prototype Switch, with its gamepad only mode for a lot of games. It kind of felt like they were starting to move in that direction, and between it failing to meet expectations and the 3DS continuing to destroy their expectations, it almost feels inevitable that eventually that they would have sooner or later, in that case sooner, merged their divisions of home consoles and handhelds. And I can't imagine, like, I might have to at some point, I don't know, but I can't imagine going back to not having that as an option. The convenience of it is just too great. And plus, the way they've tied their back catalog in so, like, more than ever. The Wii is when they really started doing that with the Virtual Console. But between the NSO and then just re-releases and collections and stuff, the Switch is more than ever leaning into that. And I think that's another thing that's kind of been feeding into people's expectations of having access to older games in not just in small amounts with ports here and there, but with, like, big batches. And in terms of its portability, it doesn't have quite the social togetherness of Street Pass that 3DS had, but being able to take it to friends' houses and stuff, it's still a feature that really has helped. It's brought me together with friends. Like, before, I'd go to a friend's house and we'd play on their game system. Maybe if we're playing a 3DS game, to get in multiplayer, I'd bring my 3DS over. But, like, Monster Hunter Rise, when that came out, that I made a big thing with my friends. We all picked it up that day, went over with all our Switches, and played for 12 plus hours. Like, and I think it's a thing Nintendo's always been good at making social experiences, despite how lukewarm they've been with online. That's a thing they've pushed forward, and I think it's a thing that's has always influenced me and helped me connect with people, and the Switch is no different. And just the success, though, of their system that, once again, is helping connect people, has connected me with people more than ever. This is how I've met so many people through Twitch, is thanks to a common shared love of the Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
Of Nintendo in general, but the Switch was a huge catalyst.
Yep. Caitlin.
Oh man. Oh man.
It's a big question.
Yeah, right. Like I was saying earlier, I briefly mentioned I think the Switch is the greatest gaming system to have ever been made. And I think that's because it doesn't bring together just Nintendo and at its best, but it brings together so much of gaming history to a new generation of people, right? Because you know, the Nintendo hardcore fans, we're the ones that bought a Wii U. We're the idiots that bought a Wii U. All
Idiot.
all 13
I was ahead of my time.
of us. Yeah. All
Early
13.5 million of us, right? Like,
There are dozens of us.
we were the beta testers for Nintendo HD era, right? Like,
Well said.
but now, just like earlier, right? Those 5 like favorite Switch games, right? It obviously we can all list the Nintendo first party stuff that comes out every single month, because dear Lord, they have so many IP that they're capitalizing on nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's only like a fraction, right? Like
Fraction of a percentile at this point.
Yep.
right. The Switch has hundreds of games similar to, you know, the NES, SNES, right? Like hundreds and hundreds of games you can play.
Tens of thousands
But-
at this point with all the eShop.
Yeah.
Right. But nowadays, the quality and the amount in that quality is so high. There's no shortage of like literal gaming legends you get to play nowadays, right? The only things you're really going to miss out on are a couple of things, like maybe Halo, you know, God of War or Ratchet and Clank, that kind of stuff, right? You're going to miss out on stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Your Spider-Man, yeah.
right. But there's so much good happening on the Switch, and I think it can't be understated just how amazing that console is. And Nintendo would be actual morons if they did not like keep that going as long as they possibly could, right? Because like I started going all digital on my games back on the PSP. If I could go digital with a game, I would, because the convenience factor is there for me, right? Like I like being able to just hot swap between games because that's the kind of person I am, right? Like, oh, what am I feeling right now? Smash? Okay, I'll boot it up, no problem. Oh, but maybe, you know, my friend wants to run a few laps at Mario Kart. Bam, I'll just switch right over to it because it's digital, right? Like I don't gotta putz around with a disc or a cart or whatever, right? Like it just works, right? Well, a cart, haha. But it just the convenience factor has been made so much worse with Switch. It worse, quote unquote, because now I own. I think Shad, you were saying earlier, like the only thing that compares is the Steam library, and that only compares because games go on sale for like $1. Like it's kind of ridiculous. But I own easily over 200 games on Switch now, like and all of them are downloaded. I could swap between any of them at any time, and I think they're always going to want to keep that going because people are going to want to build their libraries forever. We're going to want to have access to every game ever made all the time, anywhere, anytime. You know what I mean? Like that's a very ambitious goal. It's kind of what Microsoft tries to do, right? Like that's what kind of Game Pass is trying to be, right? You can play your games anywhere, anytime, that kind of thing, right? I enjoy my Xbox, but like especially because like I could swap between my PC and my Xbox just fine. Like it has cross save and stuff like that. I think that's the only way Nintendo could like open a new market for themselves is PC gaming, but that's an entirely new conversation. I know a lot of Nintendo hardcores don't want that, but like I'm just saying, I would buy your games twice. I'm an idiot. So I would gladly buy Smash again if I could play it on my computer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the Switch has been like pure like gaming magic that I don't think we've seen since like the initial launch of the Wii. Like where just the entire world looked at Nintendo at the time, right? Because like when I had told my folks I was going to buy a new Nintendo system in 2017, they were like, they didn't even realize Nintendo was still around because the Wii U was a blip. The Wii died after like 2010 for people. Like it lasted about 3 years. It was kind of cool, and then it went away. Right?
Yeah.
They didn't even realize Nintendo was still making stuff because no one cared. But now, Rick, you were saying Switch is what, third best-selling thing in all of gaming?
Yeah,
like
it's only like 10 million behind, I think, something like that. It's very close.
It's 15 million behind. Yeah, 15 million, like roughly at that point, because the DS was barely a million behind.
Yeah, it's like 154 to 155.
Exactly. Yeah. If the DS had sold like 70,000 more units, they could have overtaken. Damn it.
Yeah.
That's first of all, that's hilarious. But second of all, like that's insane to me that like Nintendo is 2 of the top 3 spots. You know what I mean? And
I love it.
Yeah, right. I love it. It's awesome. There's so much to play, and I love it's not always just the new hotness. It's the legacy of games. You know what I mean? Like there's always something cool to try. You know, like it's so awesome that like I can just tell my friend, oh yeah, you ever heard of Crusader of Senti? This like Zelda Link to the Past game from the Genesis era that's never been re-released.
Yeah.
Well, now it's just on NSO and you can go play it, and it's just tight and people love it.
Yeah.
And people compare it favorably to Zelda games. Like, except you talk to dogs. So like that's like a thing, I guess, right? But like that game's never been re-released on anything ever. So like it's so cool that like not only do you get the new cool stuff, you get all the old cool stuff. And fuck man, the Switch is cool. What the fuck?
Yep.
I'm pissed. I love the Switch.
Absolutely.
It's just so amazing.
Well, they're also in this like really delicate, I guess, position right now where they have the opportunity to do something really smart and really, I think, beneficial for everybody, which is so in about 50 days from now, 7 weeks and change, the Wii U and 3DS servers, with very few exceptions, are going down. Just all of them. Like there's a couple, I think Pokemon Home is one that's going to work regardless of all of those. And there's like a very few number of others that will still work. And we're going to be at a point where Nintendo has only the Switch that it supports at all. Which, granted, Wii U support is not exactly something that, you know, there was clamoring for. 3DS still has folks who are playing stuff on there. But, like, we're at a point where it kind of feels like there's a wall coming down between the Switch and the things that come before it. And the NSO is awesome, and it is and it's bringing stuff back from further in the past. But there's always this, like, shadowy cloud of, like, 10 to 15 years that Nintendo doesn't really touch until that time has passed. And it kind of worries me in some ways that, like, you know, we're at a risk of like losing some of that Wii era stuff, as well as the like DS and the 3DS. Like those were huge for Nintendo, especially the DS with at 154 million. Right, but it's the best selling thing that Nintendo's ever made.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not for like too much longer, but like for the time being, it's the biggest thing they ever made, and there's no way to play, you know, a lot of DS stuff anymore, and the 3DS is about to go away as well, with not a real replacement. The Switch is, as a hybrid, the first ever of their handhelds to not support backwards compatibility to the previous handheld,
Nope.
which is, if they're smart, they will at least consider that as a possibility for the Switch 2. If they're going to have Switch cartridges and Switch 2 cartridges,
Better
put a
be.
3DS slot in there for the love of God. Please make there be some possibility of retaining that, because the 3DS is so hard to do anything with now that the shop is down and the servers are going to go down, and like there are so many games that were digital only that are now gone forever unless Nintendo decides to bring them back.
The one thing I will say when it comes to like, even if the servers are down, you could still re-download any of the games that you bought. You
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
because there were people making a misconception, like spreading like misinformation, stating that like once servers are gone, you can't re-download anything. That's not true. I'm gonna say that right now. Not true. You could still re-download whatever you bought. But you do make a really good point on that. So I'll give you that one.
I do want to add that Shadowy Cloud you mentioned, they kind of cut it off after the N64 and they haven't touched it since the Wii. Like their retro services, Virtual Console, NSO, they've been up to the N64 and no further since they started doing this stuff.
Yeah, but you can say something, Caitlin?
I mean, I was gonna say they're definitely not gonna do a cartridge slot because that would just be more hardware to put in the device, right?
Yeah,
That's true.
At the very least, I could see them porting games or remastering them, similar to, like, for example, Luigi's Mansion 2.
yes.
Like we are getting an HD version of that, right?
Yeah.
And granted, it takes a lot more work to, upscale and recreate games of that era, but like some of the 3DS's games are the highest received in their respective series. A Link Between Worlds, Fire Emblem Awakening, not Fire Emblem Fates. Games like that have a chance.
Kid Icarus Uprising.
Yep, Kid
Yeah.
Icarus Uprising, huge
That's
one,
a big
right?
one.
Huge one. But that has a chance of coming back in an HD format because they know people are going to want that, right? Like if we got Advance Wars and Famicom Detective Club, come on, we're getting Kid Icarus.
Exactly.
Like, come on now.
Like at this point, if Nintendo can bring Endless Ocean back, there's no excuse. There's no excuse.
Yeah, I do feel we're at a point with Nintendo that literally any franchise can come back.
It's just
So
it's at this point, it's just not a matter of if, but a matter of when.
Yeah.
Yep. And I know that you have some stuff you want to say, Mantle.
I'm just waiting for my turn on the question.
Yeah. But you have anything else you want to add before we go to Mantle, Caitlin?
No, that's it. Go ahead. All yours, man.
All right.
Now sorry, go on, Shellshock.
No, I'm saying you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, for how the Switch has left an impact on me, I'm just... Yes, it has left an incredible impact. Again, to me, it embodies everything I love, not just about Nintendo, but about video games. I know all of us, through this incredible conversation so far, have got over how it has amazing, just first time on the console games, whether it's multi-platform release or a Switch exclusive. It's got incredible collections. Games that I already have on these original consoles, I have got again because of the way these collections are. Or games that, like Trace Memory, I was always curious about that on DS. Never picked it up. I'm glad I waited. Here I am. And then other games where, as you were saying, like things that have been ported that we never thought we were going to get. Live Alive. In my case, Tales of Vesperia.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love Tales of Vesperia.
I'm a huge Tales of fan. It's my fourth favorite game series because Xenoblade recently overtook it. Funny thing with that, I don't mind Microsoft as a company. I can't stand Xbox. I never wanted them in the console industry. I'm happy for any of my friends who enjoy it, especially with Game Pass, but I never wanted them in the console industry. So when Tales of Vesperia, just as a little aside, in the West was only released on Xbox 360, I was not happy. I went to the point of just getting a PS3 import Japanese, and I'm intermediate in Japanese and was ready to start playing it, but too many games and moves came up. My patience paid off, and now I've got it on Switch and PS4. But just as you were mentioning, all these games that some that we've hoped for a while, like Super Mario RPG, Thousand Year Door, and then others that we've wanted to see something, but we were accepting if we didn't. Endless Ocean Luminous. Y'all are not going to hear me shut up about this once it comes out. I'm sorry in advance. But if you want to like ride the waves of that hype, F-Zero 99. It's not the F-Zero we wanted, but it's certainly flipping amazing. And to me, it gives hope because the last closest thing we had to it was like a fast racing Neo on the Wii U. And with the Wii U, there was one little point I've been holding on to this whole time. Regardless of like the whole I will still die that it was an underrated and underappreciated console. No matter what anyone thinks, the Wii U, for me, it's my second favorite console of all time, only behind the Switch. The Wii U was a necessary step to get to the Switch. And it's not just from the developing and construction standpoint, but also from a consumer standpoint. Let's all face it. The jump from Blu-ray to DVD without HD DVD in the middle was amazing. I couldn't believe people actually went for the superior option. Back in the day, before many of our times, or right around our times, Betamax was a superior option and people still went VHS. You have to follow a sequence with people. And this one, they not only did they follow it, they capitalized on every single thing. I mean, we joked around years ago that 3DS printed money. The Switch is continuing to print that. But I don't know why that went off on 5 different tangents. But the Switch, to me, has just, again, it has encapsulated and embodied what I love about video games. It has impacted me with amazing memories, incredible games, boosted bonds with friends. I mean, I honestly, I love we know how on the Switch you can arrange your games by last played or by playtime hours. Yeah. I always do it by playtime hours. And I love just looking at that page and realizing, wow, look at all that time, all those great memories right there.
Yes.
I mean, if any of those games I've spent thousands or hundreds of, or even just tens of hours in, people have figured out who I was on the Switch because they don't know my online nickname of Mantle. They figured out who I was because of how many hours I had in Splatoon.
Yep.
So, but the Switch to me is just kind of like we were all talking about, the way that even if it lives in our docks, we can pick it up with us and go. Like Shellshock, whenever I hopefully get to finally head up that way and meet you in person, my Switch is going to be with me.
Yes.
And we'll have that. And being able to sit catty corner with a friend and play it. And again, it is, like I said earlier, it's a hybrid. It is a home console that has the chance of going wherever you are. Mine lives docked. I have friends who prefer it handheld. That's awesome. The fact that it has been able to show that flexibility for people is also just cool. And then not to go back and repeat too much, but just the library alone. I have probably close to 200 games at this point for it as well, especially if we're including every individual one in those collections. I know I'm well over 100. I'm a huge game collector. I've got several hundred games. The Switch is already the highest library, even if you're not counting how many games are in a collection.
Yeah.
I look at my shelf here, and there's still... I'm real bad just because of how the past few months have been. I have a bunch of Switch games over here to the side that I've not rearranged in my shelves yet, but having got these props for tonight is going to help out with that. I love being able to look over at all that mostly red, just be like, man, look at all those games I've got. Man, look at all those games I have to play. Man, look at those games I can't wait to replay. But it's just, they're serotonin shelves is what they are.
Yep.
And it is... It's so hard to put into words, but again, I'm also I'm a collector, not just for the games, but I can't tell y'all how many flipping peripherals and controllers I've got for this blasted thing. And I use the majority of them, and which ones I'm not using, I'm happy to have collected. Yep. They've improved the online. They have improved the library. There's a couple, there's only a few things I could think that would make the console better, but I know for a fact that no matter what the successor console happens to be, the Switch is still going to be played in my apartment. And it is hands down always going to be just something. But yeah, just the ultimate impact aside from just all those good games and memories. tonight embodies that too, of the friends I've made thanks to gaming. So.
Yep. So the Switch really put like a lot, so the Switch left a lot of impact for me in so many ways, but in terms of the biggest ways that it did, it helped me make more new friends over the years, online and in IRL. It actually got me to play a lot of different games I otherwise would have never played. It actually helped me get myself out of my own comfort zone and try something new, which is something I hope that most Nintendo fans can actually do. But at the same time, reliving some classics that I used to love, and the Switch has. I know next week there's going to be like a discussion on collections, but the Switch has a ton of collections. I have a fucking Ninja Turtles collection on Switch, for Christ's sakes. And I'm happy that I can play 13 classic Ninja Turtles games on the Nintendo Switch, wherever and whenever. That's how much of an impact this leaves. Like, playing games that I cherish the most, old and new, no matter where I'm at, no matter who I'm with or what I'm doing, it's something that I'm grateful for. So if this is not my favorite console of all time, I don't know what is. Like, to me, this rivals like consoles like the Super Nintendo, PlayStations 1 and 2, the Xbox 360, the Nintendo DS. It rivals those consoles for me. But the Switch, there's just something about it. What is it? There's just some sort of magic that, like, yes, I don't even give a shit how underpowered it is. I know there's performance issues for some of these games. Yes, we call them out. But at the same time, at the end of the day, don't we just play video games to have fun?
Exactly.
So, the impact is, it's helped me get through a whole lot of my life. And it's still doing that. Been more aware of like so many different games I've never played before, never heard of, so many indie games that I wanted to try out, so many games that I've been wanting to get through all this time. Like, my backlog is just ridiculously huge thanks to the Switch. I mean, of course Steam too, but right now it's about the Switch. But yeah, I'm forever grateful for all the memories, the friends that I've made, reconnected with people I haven't talked to in a long time, as well as continuing the bonds that I already have with my friends, and the Switch being a part of that just helps. So, in the fairness of time, we're only going to answer a few community questions. I'm only going to pick 3 tonight because of time. So I'm going to pick some really good ones. The first one that I'm going to pick is from Professor Icepick. Do you think that the Switch's lack of power compared to its contemporaries in both the 8th and 9th console generations hampered its performance too much? Or were Nintendo and most of the developers working on the system able to utilize the limited hardware to its fullest for the most part? And we're going to rapid fire these because I would like to wrap up soon. But
Yeah.
Sorry.
but to answer that question, I'm just going to say this right now. I felt that a lot of companies did use the Switch hardware to its fullest, but there were some that were actually just pretty lazy. But that's all I can really say.
I think
After you.
I think it's obviously very dependent on on who we're talking about. Ironically, I feel like it hampered more first-party titles than third-party. I feel like a lot of the notable third-party, and it's not always true, but a lot of the notable third-party games got good ports, but we have cases like especially Pokemon where they don't give enough development time and just want to rush them out there.
Yeah.
And there's no reason any of the Pokemon games that released should have performed badly. All of them were within what the Switch is capable of.
Yeah.
They were all the Pokemon Company not giving enough time.
Yep.
And there's a few others examples of first party games that have had some performance issues here and there that I feel Nintendo is eager to capitalize on the Switch and trying to get as many first-party IPs out as possible in the 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them are as notable as Pokemon, but and there is some exceptions, like Sonic Superstars, but like still, I think it hasn't limited studios for the most part from being willing to port their games to Switch.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it has made it some extra hoops to jump through, and so some of the games just aren't optimized as well as they should be. But that's more on trying to get the game out quicker than it is that the Switch can't do it.
Yep. Caitlin?
I'm sort of in the opposite mindset in that yes, Pokemon are very big examples of, very technologically low quality, if I could be clear. But I would say it is mostly hurt third parties. For example, Capcom and Square Enix when it comes to modern Resident Evil and Kingdom Hearts.
Yes.
I mean, that's a
We all love cloud versions, right?
cloud version.
We all love them cloud versions, and most people will. I agree to a degree that those games wouldn't have come to Switch without cloud versions, but they wouldn't have come to Switch because of how much time it would have taken. Right? The only reason we didn't get cloud versions of Kingdom Hearts, I feel, was because COVID had still pushed everything back. And so by the time they're working on all these ports for Kingdom Hearts, the Switch would have probably been like on its last legs anyway. You wouldn't have gotten as much sales out of it, especially around the time Sora was coming to Smash. Like people wouldn't have really, it would have been a little weird to like, oh, eventually it came out, right? But
I don't think there was much excuse for the Kingdom Hearts games aside from 2.8 because of the Birth by Sleep thing, and then Kingdom Hearts 3. All of the older ones, it really shouldn't even been that hard to optimize it. To be honest, they should have. They're PS2 and PSP games. Like
The scope is well within the realm of possibility for the Switch by a big margin.
And I don't think it would have been much work. I think at that point it was just Square being kind of greedy and just trying to push them out.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I pretty much just agree with Shellshock. That's the best I can say with it. It's like I feel that most of the time it's more on the dev side than the Switch's side. But the Switch, while it might not have quite as much sheer raw power as some of the other consoles do, it has what it needs. And as we all know, gameplay first before anything else. And most of the games still play so much better than people are giving them credit for. And again, people are always going to focus on the ones that fall a bit short, but they're ignoring the vast majority, which play exactly as they're supposed to, if not even more better. If not even more, just more amazingly. And how many of them are still like running 60 FPS and looking beautifully, just beautifully rendered and everything. So, yeah.
Rick?
Yeah, I think I more or less echo what I feel like we're all kind of on the same page for the most part. I think it's kind of a twofold thing, right? Like, I don't think it's on the console to make the games that are developed good. Like it's sort of putting the cart before the horse. It comes down to developers to utilize, to take. I mean, there's a reason that consoles have specs, right? You look at them and you do as much QA testing as you can get in there, hopefully. And the idea is, we've got developers who have humongous, like Xbox-sized games that they're trying to crunch down into a Switch, and they do kind of a ramshackle job with it and don't really always do the best job of making it fit or making it feasible. And then you've got similar problems like Shad was talking about with Pokemon, where I like Scarlet and Violet just fine as a game. And like as the DLCs go on, the game does improve in a lot of ways. But like, man, it was really hard to look at the game when it was being like marketed early on, and like there were all the memes about like, look at this tree, look at this grass, and it's like, yeah, that is actually pretty jarring that there is marketing material with like, you can see that this tree is a pentagon shape, and it's like that's really, and like Pokemon has done better than that, and hell, we've got Zelda right next to it, which is again like way huger and looks generally a lot better than that. And like the 2 points that I want to kind of use to hammer that in is Pokemon is, last I checked, the best selling media franchise in the world. It's astronomical how much money the Pokemon company brings in between its video games, anime, its movies, its toys, everything. It makes a disgusting amount of money every single year.
Yeah.
So why in the absolute hell can they not justify to themselves using that money to really put the spit and polish on these games that they deserve after, what are we at, 30 years now almost? 30 years is coming quick. We're at like 28 right now.
Yeah, this will be 20. It's 28 now.
Yeah, so
I mean, when you're gone.
Oh no, go for it. Yeah.
I was saying, when you're comparing Pokemon, the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet to like Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, despite using most of the assets from Breath of the Wild, they took their time with like 5+ years of development.
Yeah.
Scarlet and Violet, they rushed out in like 3 years. That's the difference.
There's like a visible 3-year cycle at the Pokemon company at this point, because you've got your new generation, you've got your remakes, and you've got like your spin-off titles with like Legends Arceus, which fortunately Legends Arceus generally looks mostly like better than Scarlet and Violet.
It wasn't perfect, but it was definitely better than Scarlet and Violet.
What I found very interesting, it came up, I was doing some recording today actually, and we had discussed like, so Pokemon Legends ZA got its big reveal, and they announced it as coming, sometime next year, which means that unless there's something surprising coming this summer, this is going to be the first year without a Pokemon release in maybe decades.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
possibly
been
ever
a long time.
I'm just proud of them for taking their time after we've all seen all this. And I don't even play most of the mainline Pokemon games, but I'm so tired of them like just pulling an Ubisoft.
Yeah, it's like,
I don't know if they're taking their time though, because their timeline would say 3 years is next year, so we could
That's
still.
true. Yeah, that's a good
They
point.
could still push Gen 10 out.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm hoping they save it for the 30th anniversary. Give it 2 more years.
I'm just thinking about what we had recently had announced at the Pokemon Presents. So
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think that maybe it's that, because they got to the point where they pushed off their remake development to another studio.
Yeah,
and Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, while it probably still made them buckets of money, was not super well received. So maybe they're like, let's not just shove this out, the remakes out to other studio just to get a game out this year. So
yeah. So I know I said like I was gonna pick 3 questions, but I think I'm just gonna wrap it up here because of timing.
that's fair.
Because this has been a great discussion, guys. I'm happy that we did this. Apologies to the people who submitted the community questions that I did not answer, but I will say that you guys have great questions. But I appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you as always. Before we sign off, Shad, where can we find you?
You can find me here at twitch.tv/ShadJV. You can also find me on YouTube. Also, username there is ShadJV. I'm on Blue Sky. Username there is also ShadJV. The odd one out is Twitter, where it's Shad_JV.
Mm-hmm. Caitlin, where can we find you?
I was making the joke earlier. I mostly post on Twitter, but I am actually working on YouTube stuff. So if you just want to look me up on YouTube, KutieKatelyn with 2 Ks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on a video now about something else Nintendo should revive, and I think would be really cool in a what if scenario. So you might wanna stick around for that. I think that'd be really fun.
Yep.
So thanks for having me, Chef.
No problem. Mantle?
everyone, you can find me on twitch.tv/MantleFerox, the same as you can see my name here. And thank you so much for that shout out, Shellshock. You can also find me on Twitter as well as Blue Sky, but MantleFerox for both of those. My outlier is Instagram, which is mostly for my cosplay, which is M_factor_cosplay. So yeah, you can find me on each of those. I know this topic had all of us rambling a lot, but it just shows how passionate and excited we were about this. But Shellshock, as ever, thank you so much for having me, and always love hanging out with you, and I'm always honored to be a guest on your show.
Yep. It's always good to have you and Rick.
Yeah, our main shtick is YouTube. We got youtube.com/dpadfm or at _dpad, because they still haven't gotten rid of their weird redundant username system yet. They're getting there. Also on twitch.tv/dpadfm. I'm on Twitter as downright dpad, all one word, no underscores.
Yep.
At the dpad got scooped up so fast on there, it was ridiculous.
Oh,
We actually a story for another day. We'll have to come back next March 3rd to continue all of these. I'm on Blue Sky as well, and Threads, though I don't use that much at all, as Rick Desi, RICDESI.
Yep.
I think that's all my main haunts. Yeah. Yep. and like others have said, it's been an awesome time with all of you. Thank you for having me on. This is my first time here. I would love to come back sometime, and I would love to chat with all of you guys for any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for
Feelings
having me.
mutual.
No problem.
Blast.
Yep. And as always, you can find me on any type of social media at ShellshockPrime, where I do my daily streams on Monday through Thursdays with the occasional Sunday, though I'm going to be streaming on more Sundays because we got a lot of Share with Shellshock episodes coming up. And next week, the next episode is going to be video game compilations and collections. That's going to happen next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And the guests on that one will be 112, the Arcade Bear, Azran127, and Okami Hylia. 2 returning guests and 2 new guests coming in. I hope you guys can tune in next week, and I'll see you guys then.